Chapter 674. Bang, bang, bang. All of a sudden, countless immortals were torn apart in the dense crowd, exploding into clouds of blood mist as they were slain by someone. In just a few breaths of time, thousands of immortals were killed. What's going on? The surrounding immortals turned pale with fright when they saw the immortals being killed. They didn't know why these immortals would suddenly explode into pieces. Could it be that a supreme immortal sovereign has made his move? This thought flashed through everyone's mind. That's not right. If it's an immortal sovereign, I'm afraid all of us will be killed with a single slap. However, although these immortals were killed, their strength wasn't very strong. I don't think it's an immortal sovereign expert. Could it be an immortal sovereign? I don't think so. If it's an immortal sovereign, our immortal sovereigns would have made their move long ago. Perhaps the immortal sovereign expert doesn't know how these immortals died. How could they resist it? Hurry up and back off. This is too strange. The terrifying strength is still killing. Suddenly, someone shouted, because while they were talking, hundreds and thousands of immortals were killed and turned into clouds of blood mist. They couldn't be more dead. What is that? Suddenly, someone cried out in surprise. What? Everyone looked over. Then, their faces were filled with shock and confusion. In front of them, in the void where those immortals were killed. At this moment, a small whirlpool appeared. The whirlpool wasn't very big. It was about the size of a water bucket. At this moment, the whirlpool was spinning at an incomparably fast speed. Waves of terrifying chi were emitted from it. Moreover, waves of energy were shot out from the whirlpool, turning into various divine weapons. They shattered the void and attacked the immortals nearby. In nine heavens, Xian, immortal expert, who couldn't dodge in time, let out a miserable cry. He was slashed into a cloud of blood mist by a war blade formed from the whirlpool. What a terrifying strength. The surrounding people's expression changed. A nine heavens Xian, immortal expert, was considered an expert among them. After all, although these clans were first-rate forces, it was impossible for them to have so many immortal emperors and immortal lords. The maelstrom is getting bigger. It is already the size of a water tank. No! Everyone run! An immortal cultivator roared furiously. Turning around, he unleashed his speed and shot into the distance. A few breaths ago, the whirlpool was only the size of a bucket. At this moment, the whirlpool had already become the size of a pond. However, the vortex was still expanding at a terrifying speed. However, this was not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was that after the whirlpool grew larger, the power that it shot out became even more terrifying. Moreover, a terrifying suction force was emitted from the vortex, trying to suck in the people nearby. Once they were sucked in, they would definitely be ground to dust. There was no way they could survive. The reaction speed of these immortals was definitely not slow. On the contrary, it was very fast. But the speed of the whirlpool was even faster. In just an instant, the whirlpool had expanded to 1,000 miles in size. Countless experts were either sucked in, ground to dust by the power of the whirlpool, or blasted into a bloody mist by the power of the whirlpool. Tens of thousands of immortals were directly killed. Looking from afar, there seemed to be an incomparably huge tornado raging in the distance. The terrifying power was constantly erupting. Every moment, a large number of immortals were ground to dust. Such a terrifying whirlpool had appeared in front of the 4 city gates of Feng City. In just a short time, the 4 whirlpools had sucked in hundreds of thousands or even millions of immortals. These immortals, who were usually high and mighty, were like lowly ants in front of the whirlpool. They could not withstand a single blow. They were directly sucked in or killed. What is that? In Feng City, the immortals were dumbfounded as they looked at the huge blood-red whirlpool outside. At this time, the diameter of the whirlpool had exceeded 10,000 miles. It was expanding at a more terrifying speed than before. It seemed that the bigger the whirlpool, the more terrifying its power was. The whirlpool was almost colorless before, but now it's blood-red. It's been dyed red by blood. Some of the people in Feng City looked on in shock. The outside world was in chaos, and the power of the attack on Feng City had weakened considerably. It had no effect on the city at all. Because of this, the people in Feng City rose into the air one after another and looked outside. Indeed, the whirlpool had been dyed red by blood. Countless immortals had been killed. Run! Outside Feng City, the immortals roared and fled into the distance. They had no choice but to flee. The whirlpool was too terrifying. Once they got within a certain distance, they would be sucked into the whirlpool or killed by the whirlpool's power. They wanted to destroy the whirlpool, but before their power could reach it, it was violently sucked in by the whirlpool. Being sucked in wasn't a big deal, but what made these people scared was that after their power was sucked in, it was immediately assimilated into the power of the vortex. In other words, the power they used to attack Boone had not only destroyed the vortex, but also strengthened the vortex. How could these immortals not flee in the face of such a terrifying and strange whirlpool? If they didn't, they would only be waiting for death. What the hell is this? Break it! Several immortal monarchs jumped out and unleashed their strongest attack, shattering the void and rushing toward the whirlpool. In the sky above Feng City, Murong Yu's eyes shone brightly, and Murong Yu snorted coldly. The whirlpool, which had reached 10,000 miles in diameter, suddenly rose and engulfed the immortal monarchs who were attacking him. What? The few immortal monarchs were shocked because they realized that even if they struck out with their power, they were unable to shatter the whirlpool. After being strengthened by the immortal monarch's power, the whirlpool became more and more terrifying. While these immortal monarchs were still in shock, the whirlpool had already engulfed them, and its terrifying power directly crushed them into powder. What a terrifying power! Killing immortal monarchs is like slaughtering dogs. At the east gate of Feng City, Xiahou Zhua opened his eyes and saw the scene outside. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Spatial storm, massacre the heavens, destroy the earth, shatter the firmament, and destroy everything." Murong Yu, who was suspended in the void, suddenly shouted. At this moment, in front of the other three gates of Feng City, the originally motionless whirlpools began to move rapidly, strangling the immortals. These whirlpools were created by the Sacred Lord. The Sacred Lord is so powerful and terrifying. Kill these bastards, don't leave a single one alive. At this time, the people of the Heavenly Court finally reacted. They knew that the four whirlpools were created by Murong Yu. The Sacred Lord is mighty. The people of the Heavenly Court shouted excitedly. They couldn't wait to rush out and kill all the immortals outside. Massacre the heavens, shatter the firmament, and destroy everything. Wherever the whirlpools passed, the firmament was swallowed, the earth was shattered, and the immortals were as fragile as ants, unable to withstand a single blow. Even immortal monarchs couldn't resist. Anyone who got close to the whirlpools would die. At this time, the whirlpools were so red that they were turning black. This was because too many people had been killed. At the same time, Murong Yu's stars were also rapidly increasing, much faster than when he had intentionally gone out to kill the villains. More than a dozen major forces had gathered billions of disciples. Why did they attack Feng City? After attacking for a long time without success, at least half of the disciples were strangled when the four whirlpools appeared. In other words, Murong Yu's four whirlpools had killed at least 2 billion people. In addition to these immortals who were killed, most of the disciples had already fled in all directions. In the face of this terrifying whirlpool, they were really vulnerable and didn't dare to get close. And all this happened in a short period of time. Rumble, suddenly, dozens of terrifying forces shot up into the sky. Large hands appeared high in the sky, and then burst out with a terrifying aura that could destroy the heavens and earth. They slammed down hard on the four whirlpools below, trying to shatter these whirlpools. Their immortal emperors have finally made their move. Xiahou Zhua's eyes burst out with dazzling divine light. His body swayed and rushed out. At the same time, in the midst of the dazzling golden light, he had already taken out his emperor weapon and attacked one of the large hands. At the same time, The other immortal emperors of the heavenly court also made their moves at the same time, attacking the other immortal emperors. In fact, many immortal monarchs of the heavenly court also joined forces and unleashed their strongest attacks. They gathered together and attacked those huge hands, stopping them from attacking the vortex. Rumble, at this time, a few more powerful and terrifying auras burst out from the distance, forming large hands, divine fists, and divine weapons that attacked the immortal emperors of the Zhang family and more than a dozen other forces. Swish, swish, swish. In the distance, several figures with powerful auras rushed over at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, a hearty laughter was heard. "Brother Morong, I'm not late, am I?" Morong Yu's eyes burst out with divine light, and a touch of joy appeared on his face. Shangwan Bo and the others had finally arrived. Moreover, they were not the only ones who had come. The immortal emperors of their families had also come. With the addition of these new forces, the immortal emperors of the Zhang family and more than a dozen other forces were basically blocked. Morong Yu no longer had any worries and controlled the whirlpools to kill back and forth. Wherever they passed, not even a blade of grass was left. The void was annihilated, and countless enemies were killed. After a few rounds of killing, there were not many enemies outside Feng City, except for those immortal emperors who were fighting in the sky. With no one to kill, Morong Yu dismissed the whirlpools that had killed countless people. Barf! After these whirlpools were dismissed, Morong Yu could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Controlling these 4 whirlpools consumed a lot of his strength and mind. Chapter 675. Morong. Seeing Morong Yu vomit blood, Zhao Jiqing and the others were shocked and hurriedly flew over. Morong Yu shook his head and said, "I'm fine." As he spoke, an enormous amount of life force began to wash over his body. Under the scouring of this terrifying life force, Morong Yu's injuries rapidly healed. Not long after, his qi and blood surged and his aura became stronger. "All of you stay in the city, don't go out." Morong Yu instructed Zhao Jiqing, then soared into the sky and flew out of the city. Zhao Jiqing was anxious. Just as she was about to stop him, Morong Yu had already flown out. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." Morong Yu's voice came from afar. He was already close to where the immortal emperors were fighting. "Don't worry, the little man should be confident. We don't need to worry." Seeing Zhao Jiqing's worried expression, Mu Liue immediately comforted her. Zhao Jiqing also nodded, but their eyes were still fixed in front of them. After all, it was the battlefield of immortal emperors. Although Morong Yu was extremely powerful, he was only in the immortal king realm. There was a huge gap between him and immortal emperors. In front, dozens of immortal emperors were fighting. On the Zhang family side, there were more than 10 factions. Each faction had at least one immortal emperor expert. Some factions even had more than one. In total, there were about 20 immortal emperors. On Morong Yu's side, there were only 11 immortal emperors, including Mingji. However, Shangwan Bo, Yi Feng, and Guan Jie had brought their families' experts over. There were about 10 of them. However, there were still fewer immortal emperors. Morong Yu's side even had 2 immortal emperors. As he neared, Morong Yu's gaze swept over and knew the strength of these immortal emperors. Then, Morong Yu's gaze landed on one of the 2 immortal emperors fighting with Xiahou Zhua. With a brick in hand, Xiahou Zhua's body shone with resplendent golden light as he soared into the sky. His qi and blood surged, and his aura erupted, sweeping through the entire area. His fighting spirit was high, and his strength was terrifying. 1 against 2 immortal emperors, he was still not at a disadvantage. If it weren't for the 2 immortal emperors, Xiahou Zhua would have already unleashed his invincible might and killed his opponent. "You're the one." Morong Yu's eyes were brimming with killing intent. He growled in his heart and grabbed at the air. Instantly, a divine sword with a terrifying aura appeared in his hand. Celestial slashing sword. With the extinguishing immortal sword in hand, Morong Yu's aura became even sharper. A terrifying aura was emitted, causing one's heart to palpitate. Immortal ending sword at the imperial level. Today, I will let you drink the blood of an immortal emperor. Moron, you stroked the body of the sword and said in a deep voice, "Buzz, buzz, buzz." The celestial ending sword trembled slightly. It was excited. The immortal ending sword was an emperor weapon. Yes, after a long period of devouring and evolution, the celestial ending sword had advanced to the imperial level. Moreover, the celestial ending sword was a bare weapon passed down from ancient times. Its destructive power was much more terrifying than Xiahou Zhuo's brick. In fact, it wasn't just the celestial ending sword that had advanced. The phoenix spear had also advanced. When Murong broke through to the immortal king realm, the phoenix spear had also advanced to the king weapon level. However, Murong's current opponent was an immortal emperor. The phoenix spear's power was still a little too weak. With a thought, Murong's body disappeared from the spot and was drawn into the void. As his understanding of the spatial laws deepened, Murong could control the power of space more easily. Hidden in the void, Murong slowly charged toward the immortal emperor that he had locked onto. At this moment, the two immortal emperors were locked in a fierce battle with Xiahou Zhuo. In fact, no one even noticed Murong's approach. Sword River Snowstorm. Murong roared in his heart and suddenly attacked. All of a sudden, a dazzling sword light shot out from the void. It formed an incomparably huge sword river. Above the sword river, the divine swords formed by energy transformed into snowflakes that shot out in all directions, shattering everything. An incomparably terrifying sword intent swept out. At this moment, the immortal emperor felt fear in his heart when he was locked onto by Murong. Heaven and earth divine fist. The immortal emperor was indeed an immortal emperor. He reacted the moment he sensed danger. He immediately abandoned Xiahou Zhuo and turned around to launch a punch. Rumble, the immortal emperor's divine fist came crashing down, annihilating the void. An incomparably terrifying aura erupted and fiercely collided with the sword river. After a series of earth-shattering explosions, hundreds of millions of sword lights soared into the sky and attacked the immortal emperor with incomparable ferocity. The sword river was like the Milky Way rushing down from the sky, carrying with it a world-destroying aura. The sword will that filled the sky directly entered the body of the immortal emperor, attacking his soul space, wanting to destroy his soul as well. What? The immortal emperor roared in disbelief. He launched a punch and collided with the sword river. The terrifying power continued to destroy the divine swords one after another. However, the power of the sword river was too terrifying. It surged like a torrent, and the divine swords he destroyed were insignificant. On the contrary, the power he unleashed was quickly annihilated. The immortal emperor roared, but the sword river had already slammed into his body with terrifying power. Billions of sword rays rushed over at this moment, tearing the void and shattering the firmament, wanting to grind the immortal emperor into dust. The immortal emperor spat out blood and revealed a terrified expression. His figure flashed and shot into the distance. "Where do you think you're going?" Murong roared, and the sword river continued to attack. At the same time, the immortal extinguishing sword in his hand trembled again, and a stunning sword was slashed out by him again. Carp leaping over Dragon Gate. Murong roared, and a sword intent that was even more terrifying than the sword river burst out, enveloping the immortal emperor in an overwhelming manner, wanting to grind him into pieces. Heaven and earth divine fist, mountain and river collapse. The immortal emperor roared and used his ultimate combat skill to fight against Murong. The sacred lord is mighty. At this moment, Xiahou Zhuo laughed loudly. With a brick in his hand, he attacked one of his opponents. Originally, he was evenly matched with the two of them, but now that one of them was pulled away by Murong, there was only one left. It was time for Xiahou Zhuo to show his might. Mysterious void, crushing technique, crushing past mountain. Murong stepped in the air and waved the divine sword in his hand. Terrifying moves were slashed out by him, slashing towards the immortal emperor. Apart from that, Murong was not stingy with his other battle skills as he bombarded the enemy's immortal emperor. However, Murong also noticed, other than using the immortal extinguishing sword to attack, the other attacks did not have much lethality to the immortal emperor. After all, without the support of the emperor weapon, no matter how powerful Murong was, there was still a huge gap between him and the immortal emperor. In the end, Murong only held the immortal extinguishing sword in his hand and fought with his opponent. The more the immortal emperor fought, the more shocked he became. The power of Murong's attacks was too terrifying. Every time he was bombarded, his blood and chi churned. On the contrary, when he looked at Murong, his attacks did not seem to hit Murong at all. Since the beginning of the battle, the immortal emperor had been injured many times, but Murong was not injured at all. Monster! The immortal emperor's heart turned cold, and he already had the intention to retreat. He was constantly injured, but the other party was always energetic. If this continued, he would be killed by Murong sooner or later. What kind of monster are you? You are only at the immortal king realm. Not only do you have the ability to injure me, but you also directly negated my attacks. After the battle, the immortal emperor roared with a face full of shock. Murong's expression was indifferent. He launched one terrifying killing move after another. He was too lazy to answer. Yes, you must have some treasure. As long as it's a treasure, it has a limit. Watch me shatter your treasure and kill you. The immortal emperor roared and attacked Murong with incomparable speed. A terrifying power erupted, tearing the sky and splitting the earth. It was earth-shattering. It tore the void within a radius of 100,000 miles. However, it was still unable to do anything to Murong. Layers of spatial barriers and spatial shields supported Murong's body. In addition, Murong also used the power of space to directly divert the power that was attacking him. Moreover, in the innermost part of the layers of spatial barriers, Murong had already taken out the Hichu Luo Shu. Even if the power could not be diverted and shatter the layers of barriers and spatial shields, it only hit the Hichu Luo Shu and was directly guided by Murong into the Hichu Luo Shu world. It could not hurt Murong at all. In the middle of the battle, Murong frowned slightly. Although he could hurt the other party now, it was not fatal. It would be a little difficult to kill him. Yin Yang, heaven and earth, fire burns the heavens. Murong shouted in his heart. Immediately, he took out the Yin Yang cauldron, which turned into a ray of light and attacked the immortal emperor. Insignificant skill. The immortal emperor sneered and pointed a finger at the Yin Yang cauldron. The terrifying power directly sent the Yin Yang cauldron flying. Murong did not release the Yin Yang fire. Murong snorted and slashed out the immortal ending sword in his hand again. The two killer moves, Sword River, Surging Snow, and Carp leaping over the Dragon Gate, injured the immortal emperor again and again. At the same time, the Yin Yang cauldron attacked the immortal emperor again. Break from me. The immortal emperor roared and attacked the Yin Yang cauldron with a heaven and earth divine fist. Spatial imprisonment. Spatial slash. Spatial storm. At this moment, Murong erupted with the power of space. What? The immortal emperor roared. At this moment, he felt incomparable danger. All kinds of invisible power frantically strangled him. At the same time, his divine fist seemed to have been blocked by someone, and he was unable to continue moving forward. Chapter 676. Rumble. The immortal emperor was struggling to move. Even his strength was restrained, and he couldn't attack. The Yin Yang cauldron suddenly enlarged and came crashing down like a divine mountain. The immortal emperor roared angrily when his movements were temporarily obstructed. Immortal light burst out from his body as waves of power erupted wildly, trying to shatter Murong's attack. As for the Yin Yang cauldron that came crashing down, the immortal emperor sneered because he didn't think this ancient cauldron could kill him. At most, it would only send him flying. In his test, just now, He could shatter the yin-yang cauldron with a single point of his finger. In his heart, the yin-yang cauldron was even worse than the trashiest king weapon. However, the immortal emperor was wrong. The yin-yang cauldron was a supreme divine weapon that was billions of times more powerful than any emperor weapon. What? Impossible! The immortal emperor suddenly roared. Just now, a destructive aura came crashing down from the top of his head. The horrified immortal emperor looked up abruptly and saw that the ordinary-looking yin-yang cauldron was now bursting with divine fire. The aura of extermination and destruction came from these divine flames. At this moment, the immortal emperor finally understood that if he couldn't escape, his soul would be destroyed by the divine fire. Roar! Under the threat of death, the immortal emperor unleashed his invincible might at this moment. His terrifying power erupted, and he actually broke free from Murong Yu's restraints. Originally, with Murong Yu's current grasp of the laws of space, he shouldn't have been able to restrain an immortal emperor for long. Otherwise, why would Murong Yu fight with the immortal emperor? He could just imprison him with a spatial shackle. After breaking free from Murong Yu's restraint, the immortal emperor didn't have time to attack Murong Yu. He immediately fled into the distance. However, it was too late. Boom! After an earth-shattering explosion, the yin-yang cauldron came crashing down. The yin-yang fire that could burn the world immediately ignited the immortal emperor and burned him. Spatial strangulation. At the same time, Murong Yu slapped out with his palm. Instantly, an endless amount of spatial energy shot out. Together with the terrifying yin-yang flame, it launched a fatal blow towards this immortal emperor. The immortal emperor let out a blood-curdling scream. Then his entire body was burned to ashes. An immortal emperor was killed just like that. An immortal king had killed an immortal emperor. In fact, this immortal king wasn't even injured. The Holy Lord is mighty. The Holy Lord is mighty. Seeing this scene, the people in Feng City all shouted loudly. Their Holy Lord was simply too mighty. As an immortal king, he had killed an immortal emperor who was 2 major realms above him. This was unheard of. However, unlike the cheers of the heavenly court, the hostile immortal emperors all had gloomy expressions. Although the one Murong Yu killed was only an early-stage immortal emperor expert, they weren't much stronger. If Murong Yu could kill one of them, he could also kill a few of them. Moreover, they were still being pestered by others. Suddenly, the faces of these immortal emperors changed, because they saw Murong Yu attacking again. Xiahou Zhuo, let's fight side by side. Kill him in the shortest time possible. Murong Yu appeared beside Xiahou Zhuo and said with a faint smile, "Okay." Xiahou Zhuo roared. His strength actually increased by another notch. His opponent was already suppressed by Xiahou Zhuo. Now he was in an even worse state. Spatial imprisonment. Spatial slash. Spatial storm. Murong Yu suddenly roared. Waves of spatial energy suddenly erupted and blasted towards the opposing immortal emperor. This immortal emperor was originally not a match for Xiahou Zhuo. Now that he was suppressed by Murong Yu, he immediately became in danger. Puff! Xiahou Zhuo smashed down with a brick, directly smashing the immortal emperor into the depths of the ground and causing him to spurt out blood. Yin-yang cauldron. Murong Yu also took out the yin-yang cauldron and attacked crazily. Under the joint attack of Murong Yu and Jian Wushuang, the immortal emperor couldn't resist at all. He was quickly killed. Next, after killing the immortal emperor, Xiahou Zhuo couldn't help but roar. Then, he and Murong Yu charged towards another immortal emperor of the heavenly court. The heavenly court's opponent, an immortal emperor, paled in fright when he saw Murong Yu and Jian Wushuang charging over. He punched out and forced the immortal emperor to retreat. Then he turned to flee. But could he still escape? Rumble. Xiahou Zhuo's imperial weapon, the golden brick, transformed into a divine mountain and exploded with resplendent light. It smashed through the void and came crashing down. The immortal emperor had nowhere to run. At the same time, a terrifying and heart-palpitating presence appeared out of thin air. In the sky, the phantom of a fiend god that was tens of thousands of meters tall appeared. Slash! A muffled roar seemed to erupt from the fiend god's throat. With a flip of his hand, a 30,000-meter-long saber appeared in the air. Then, the fiend god gripped the saber with both hands and viciously slashed down at Xiahou Zhuo's opponent. The dark fiend god Prajna of the dragon elephant Prajna art. The immortal emperor was already in imminent danger from the attacks of Xiahou Zhuo and another immortal emperor. But when the fiend god slashed down, it was a tragedy for him. He was cleaved in two and couldn't be more dead. Young master, you've received 1,000,000 stars. Steward Tian's voice sounded in Murong Yu's ears. Steward Tian, are they all, or just the ones I got from killing this immortal emperor? Murong Yu mentally asked Steward Tian. Young master, there's only one immortal emperor. Also, the immortal emperor that you killed earlier had over 1,000,000 stars as well, Steward Tian said with a slight excitement. Murong Yu had never killed an immortal emperor realm expert before. The most he had obtained from killing villains was only a few thousand star points, not even over 10,000. But killing an immortal emperor gave him 1,000,000 stars. One had to know that there were over 20 immortal emperors here. If Murong Yu could kill all of them, he'd be able to easily obtain over 20,000,000 stars. It was extremely terrifying. At the thought of this, Murong Yu's eyes couldn't help but reveal a divine glow of excitement. Everyone, don't let any of these immortal emperors go. However, let me deal the final blow. I have a great use for it. Murong Yu's voice sounded in the ears of all the immortal emperors. The heavenly court naturally agreed without any conditions. As for Shang Wanbo's side, there was no problem either. Let's go and slay the immortal emperors. Murong Yu led Xiahou Zhuo and another immortal emperor to kill Gan Fei's opponent, who was also an immortal emperor expert. Seeing Murong Yu and the others coming over, Gan Fei's opponent wanted to run away. However, he was held back by Gan Fei. In fact, it wasn't just this immortal emperor. The other immortal emperors were the same. Now, Murong Yu's side was getting more and more ferocious. If things were to continue like this, they would all be dead by the end of today. However, how could the experts of the heavenly court let them leave? If it wasn't for the peerless array that Murong Yu had set up in the heavenly court, all the people in Feng City, including these immortal emperors, would have been killed. The masters of the heavenly court hated these invaders. Therefore, they would never allow these people to leave. Therefore, when these people showed signs of retreating, the people of the heavenly court went all out. They didn't want to kill them. They only wanted to hold them back. Bang! An immortal emperor had been killed by Murong Yu, so his star points had increased by another 1,000,000. Kill! 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 The immortal emperors felt a strong sense of crisis, because they saw that more and more people were coming to Murong Yu's side. At first, there was only Murong Yu and Xiahou Zhuo. Then, with every immortal emperor that was killed, Murong Yu's side had an extra person. At this time, there were 10 immortal emperors gathered around Murong Yu. Then, the 10 immortal emperors rushed forward. One of the immortal emperors only had time to let out a roar before he was killed. Therefore, Murong Yu's side had another immortal emperor. Haha! These bastards dare to attack our heavenly court. They are really courting death. Sacred Lord will kill them one by one. In the heavenly court, countless people soared into the sky. Seeing Murong Yu display his invincible might and kill one immortal emperor after another, these people couldn't help but feel excited. Sacred Lord is mighty. Sacred Lord is mighty. Everyone shouted. Outside, many immortal emperors fell one by one. Immortal emperors were high and mighty experts in the immortal world. Usually, it was hard to even see one. However, at this time, they fell one after another. They weren't immortal. Once they were killed, they would die. 26 immortal emperors. Every one of them tried to escape. They were all killed. Heavens, is this real? Sacred Lord actually killed 26 immortal emperors. Everyone in the heavenly court was excited. Therefore, the battle outside had already ended. More than 20 immortal emperors' corpses were lying on the ground. Some were torn apart, some were burned to ashes, and some were beaten into a bloody mist. Xiahou Zhuo, hang these immortal emperors' corpses on the city gate. Murong Yu said with killing intent. Yes. Xiahou Zhua and the other immortal emperors immediately picked up the corpses and flew back to Feng City. Murong Yu went to Shangwan Bo's side. Old brother, old Yi, old Guan, thank you for your timely rescue. Otherwise, my small family business would have been destroyed. Murong Yu said with a laugh. Small family business? Shangwan Bo glared at Murong Yu and continued. If your heavenly court is considered a small family business, then what is our family business? Your strength is beyond our expectations. There are more immortal emperors than us. Chapter 677. The battle was over, and the 20 or so immortal emperors of the enemy were all killed. More than 90% of the immortals below the immortal emperor level were killed as well. It could be said that the heavenly court had achieved a complete victory in this battle. However, the heavenly court had suffered some losses from the initial attack. About 1% of its people had been killed. Although it was only 1%, how many people were there in the heavenly court? There were hundreds of billions of immortals in Feng City. 1% of hundreds of billions meant that billions of people had been killed. However, in comparison, the enemy's losses were the heaviest. The 20 or so immortal emperors were worth more than the heavenly court's losses. At the same time, the immortals who'd come to attack the heavenly court were far stronger than those who'd been killed. Most of the heavenly court's people who'd been killed weren't very strong. Black Tiger, compile the data. Comfort the families of those who died in this battle and provide them with sufficient resources. Don't treat them unfairly. At the same time, record the dead and make them martyrs of the heavenly court. At the same time, compensate the injured and give them stars according to the amount of effort they've put in. Moreover, the heavenly court will compensate them for all the losses they've suffered in this battle. Of course, that's only if it's verified. If there's any fraud, kill them without mercy. Understood. Black Tiger and the others accepted the order and hurried off to do their work. Only Murong Yu and the other immortal emperors were in the main hall. Brother, the war this time is quite strange. There are actually so many people attacking the heavenly court. They want to destroy the heavenly court? Do you know which factions they're from? Shangwan Bo asked with a frown after everyone had taken their seats. This matter is full of mysteries. Although wars of this level happen every day in the immortal world, it's really strange that they're targeting the heavenly court. Murong, you should have left someone alive, Guan Jie said in a low voice. No matter, I already know which factions they're from. It won't be long before I annihilate them all. I'll kill every last one of them. Not even a chicken or dog will be spared. Murong used murderous aura sword. This time, he was attacked by an immortal venerable in the Heavenly Eagle Ridge, and the Heavenly Court knew why. If it wasn't for Murong Yu's remarkable abilities that allowed him to break through his cultivation level and obtain an even more powerful divine ability, he would have killed him long ago. And if he was killed, the Heavenly Court would also be destroyed. This was to completely destroy Murong Yu. I was ambushed, and the Heavenly Court was besieged. This matter seems to be greatly related. Maybe it's because they think they've been killed that these people came to the Heavenly Court. Murong Yu thought to himself, his killing intent surging, his killing intent boundless. There should be someone behind them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have attacked the Heavenly Court in such a large scale. Someone must have instigated this. Perhaps they are probing. Elder Yi, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke. Guan Jie raised his eyebrows and looked at Yi Lao. What do you mean? Elder Yi didn't say anything. He pondered for a moment, as if he was organizing his words. Everyone didn't continue speaking and just looked at Elder Yi. After a while, Elder Yi finally said slowly, among these dozen forces, only the Zhang, Li, and Huang families have conflicts with Murong Yu. The others have no interactions at all. And it's obvious that these families aren't friends with the Zhang family, since they have no enmity with the Heavenly Court and don't know anyone from the Zhang family. Why would they attack the Heavenly Court? In other words, there are people above them. Or rather, these forces are all subsidiary forces of other forces. They were ordered by their superiors to attack the heavenly court in an attempt to destroy Murong-Yu. Everyone nodded, but Murong-Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light. Suddenly, the two giants, the Immortal Palace and the Devil's Sect, appeared in his mind. Those forces that attacked the heavenly court were all first-rate forces. No, they were all super first-rate forces. Only giants like the Immortal Palace and the Devil's Sect could control these huge forces. Of course, it wasn't absolute. Some super forces could also control these powerful forces. But now, Murong-Yu only had enmity with the Immortal Palace and the Devil's Sect. Especially the Devil's Sect. Many immortal emperors from the Gong family were killed, so they were the most suspicious. It was even possible that the immortal Venerate who had ambushed Murong-Yu back then was an expert from the Gong family or the Devil's Sect. No matter who wants to destroy me, I will destroy them, even if it's the Immortal Palace or the Devil's Sect. Murong-Yu's killing intent surged. Murong-Yu, have you thought of something? Or do you have a suspect? Guanji asked. Murong-Yu nodded and said, I have a suspect, but this matter still needs to be thoroughly investigated. Once I find out who is behind this, I will kill all 9 generations of their family. Boundless killing intent spread out. In an instant, the entire hall turned icy cold. Everyone in the hall could not help but shudder. It seems that Murong-Yu is completely enraged. This thought flashed through everyone's mind. But on second thought, if they were in Murong-Yu's shoes, they would also be enraged. Murong-Yu, don't be impulsive about this matter. Although the heavenly court's strength is not bad, and it even has the foundation of superforce, but the heavenly court is still not strong enough. And in the immortal world, no major force can be destroyed so easily. Old Man Yi quickly said, afraid that Murong-Yu's impulsiveness would lead to destruction. Murong-Yu nodded. These forces had immortal venerable experts behind them, but the heavenly court didn't have such experts. It was difficult to fight against them. Strength. I'm still not strong enough. Murong-Yu was furious, but he deeply felt his own weakness. Although he could kill an immortal emperor expert, he was still an ant in front of an immortal venerable. Moreover, he was a very weak ant. In addition to his own strength, the heavenly court strength was also not strong enough. Shenzhen and Celestial Palace were the same. If these 3 forces had a large number of immortal emperors, even Celestial Palace and Devil Sect wouldn't dare to touch them. However, now that the problem of South Mountain was solved, Shenzhen and Celestial Palace could produce a large number of immortal monarch experts in a short time. And once Murong-Yu had enough star points, he could exchange them for emperor-breaking pills. If there were a large number of emperor-breaking pills, Murong-Yu's 3 forces would produce a large number of immortal emperors. At that time, they could almost sweep across the immortal world. If there were more powerful pills that could help immortal emperors break through to immortal venerables, Murong-Yu could definitely dominate the immortal world. Of course, these were just Murong-Yu's thoughts buried in his heart. However, Murong-Yu knew that these thoughts would soon become reality. He wanted to control the Heavenly Punisher Palace, and even the entire immortal world in his hands. If possible, Murong-Yu wanted to control the 36 immortal worlds of Yanhuang Immortal World. As long as he could become the enforcer of these immortal worlds, his strength would be unimaginably terrifying. 3 days later, all the immortal emperors of the heavenly court, including Ming-Ji, 100 immortal monarchs, and 1,000 immortal kings, were gathered in the main hall. At this time, Shangwan Bo and the others had already returned. This time, they had brought almost all the immortal emperors of their families. If they didn't return soon, their families would be attacked, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Of course, Murong-Yu wouldn't mistreat Shangwan Bo and the others for their help this time. He gave them a large number of immortal meridians, mystical weapons, and natural treasures. Everyone, I believe you all know why I called you here. This time, we are going to destroy those dozen families. They dare to attack the heavenly court, no matter how far they are. This time, we must eliminate them completely. Not even a chicken or dog will be left alive. Murong-Yu said in a deep voice as he looked at the crowd. No matter how far they are, leave no one alive. Everyone, including the immortal emperors, shouted. After being attacked this time, they all had a bellyful of anger bottled up. Therefore, they didn't question Murong Yu's orders at all. Leave no one alive. This was the only way to intimidate the other powers. Otherwise, they would think that the heavenly court was easy to bully. Murong Yu nodded. With a wave of his hand, he kept everyone in the Hichu, Luoshu world. Then his body flashed, and he disappeared from where he was. When he appeared again, he was in the heavenly eagle state. Murong Yu had long formed a habit of building teleportation points wherever he went. Therefore, he teleported directly to the heavenly eagle state this time. The Zhang family was in the heavenly eagle city of the heavenly eagle state. However, this time, the Zhang family brought a large number of experts to the Feng state to kill Murong Yu. However, almost all of them were wiped out. Although it had only been 3 days, the news had already spread. Therefore, when Murong Yu arrived outside the Zhang family, he saw that the Zhang family was at daggers drawn and the atmosphere was heavy. The experts inside were constantly scanning with their divine senses. Many experts were patrolling the family, as if they were on guard against being attacked. Warriors of the heavenly court, come out. Destroy the Zhang family. Leave no one alive. Murong Yu smiled coldly. With a wave of his hand, the experts of the heavenly court appeared outside the Zhang family. Rumble, after these people came out, they didn't need Murong Yu's command at all. They exploded with their strongest attacks and attacked the Zhang family. The Zhang family was only an ordinary superfamily. They didn't have many immortal emperors. Even if the family was protected by a formation, it was useless. One had to know that Murong Yu had 11 immortal emperors on his side. In addition, there was a large number of immortal monarchs and immortal kings. Rumble, waves of terrifying power annihilated the sky. With a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth, they poured down on the Zhang family's teleportation formation. Chapter 678. Rumble, the attacks of a dozen immortal emperors, 100 immortal monarchs, and 1,000 immortal kings landed on the Zhang family's formation at almost the same time. It created an extremely terrifying sound. The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. The sun and the moon dimmed. It was earth-shattering. Although the Zhang family's formation was terrifying, a few immortal emperors might not be able to break it. They might even be injured by the rebound of the formation. However, it wasn't just 1 or 2 immortal emperors or 2 or 3 immortal emperors attacking. It was 11 immortal emperors attacking at the same time. Raging power poured down in torrents rip. A sound like a cloth being torn apart was heard. Then, Murong Yu saw the Zhang family's formation being torn apart. The terrifying power didn't disappear after tearing apart the formation. Instead, it bombarded the Zhang family. Without the protection of the formation, the Zhang family was completely exposed to everyone. As the terrifying power blasted down, most of the buildings in the Zhang family and countless immortals were unable to withstand the powerful force and exploded into dust. Enemy attack. At this moment, the Zhang family members finally reacted. Immediately, some of the immortals who weren't killed rushed into the sky. However, they didn't rush towards Murong Yu and the others. Instead, they rushed out from the other side, wanting to escape. If they weren't idiots, they wouldn't rush towards Murong Yu's side. After all, the strength of Murong Yu and the others was simply too frightening. They directly shattered the Zhang family's formation and killed almost everyone in the Zhang family. And this was only one attack. Leave no one alive. Xiahou Zhuo roared. He took out the emperor weapon in his hand and attacked. The other heavenly court experts did the same. They went berserk and attacked one after another. Rumble, in the second attack, the Zhang family was finally destroyed. It was directly razed to the ground. As for those experts who soared into the sky, they fell one after another. In the end, only 2 immortal emperors were left. Their faces were filled with terror as they flew into the distance. These 2 were the immortal emperors of the Zhang family. His strength was not considered weak. He actually managed to survive 2 rounds of attacks from the heavenly court's experts. Of course, he was barely able to hold on. Even though they were immortal emperors, they coughed out mouthfuls of blood and were severely injured. "Where do you think you're going?" Xiahou Zhuo and the others roared. They rushed up to the two immortal emperors and began a fight with them. 11 immortal emperors against 2 immortal emperors. The result was obvious. It didn't take long for the 2 immortal emperors of the Zhang clan to be killed by the 11 immortal emperors of the Heavenly Court. At this moment, the immortal lords and immortal kings of the Heavenly Court had already charged into the raised land and searched for the treasures that the Zhang clan had accumulated for countless years. Then, they left the Heavenly Eagle City and charged towards the Li clan. The Zhang clan, the Li clan, and the Huang clan were the 3 great first-rate clans in the Heavenly Eagle Prefecture. There wasn't just one immortal emperor expert in the clan. Normally, there were 3 or 4 immortal emperors. However, today in just one day, the Zhang clan, the Li clan, and the Huang clan. These 3 overlords of the Heavenly Eagle State were all eradicated. Not a single one of them was left alive. They were all killed cleanly. Not even a chicken or dog was spared. In an instant, the entire Heavenly Eagle Prefecture and even the nearby prefectures were shocked. All the major forces were in a constant state of panic. They were afraid that the forces that had annihilated the 3 great clans would attack their own forces as well. However, it was obvious that their fears were groundless. Murong, you didn't have the intention to attack them at all. At this moment, the reason why the 3 great clans were annihilated was also spread. Did you know? The overlords of the Heavenly Eagle Prefecture, the Zhang clan, the Li clan, and the Huang clan were all annihilated on the same day. They were all killed cleanly. Not a single one was left alive. This matter has already been spread like wildfire, hasn't it? Who doesn't know? I heard that they offended a force called the Heavenly Court. The 3 great clans joined forces with other forces to annihilate the Heavenly Court. However, billions of elite disciples were killed. Now, their clans were even razed to the ground by the furious Heavenly Court. Heavenly Court? What kind of force is that? Could it be a super force? Why is it so powerful? The Heavenly Court is only a super force. However, it is indeed powerful. I heard that they have more than 10 immortal emperors in their forces. Moreover, the welfare in the Heavenly Court is very good. There are also heaven-defying pills like the King-breaking pill and the Monarch-breaking pill, as well as various weapons and treasures. The King-breaking pill and the Monarch-breaking pill are almost extinct. Even if the Heavenly Court has them, there shouldn't be many, right? Not really. Legend has it that the Heavenly Court has a large number of such pills. As long as the disciples of the Heavenly Court have enough contribution points, they can exchange for these pills. They can exchange for king weapons, monarch weapons, and even emperor weapons. The Heavenly Court's foundation is so terrifying. I think the Zhang clan and the other forces are also after these pills and treasures, right? They want to join forces to annihilate the Heavenly Court? Most likely. However, the Heavenly Court is too powerful. What Zhang clan, what Li clan? They are all useless. They were directly annihilated by the Heavenly Court. The Heavenly Court is so powerful and has all kinds of pills. I've been stuck in the late stage of the 9 Heaven Xian Immortal Realm for a long time. If I can get the King-breaking pill, I can break through to the Immortal King realm. No, I have to join the Heavenly Court. Brother, it's not that easy to join the Heavenly Court. If you don't sincerely want to join, the Heavenly Court won't accept you. I'm just a rogue cultivator. If the Heavenly Court is as good as you say, I'll definitely join sincerely. After the Zhang clan and the other clans were annihilated, the name of the Heavenly Court spread along with the discussions of the crowd. For a time, many people had the idea of joining the Heavenly Court. On the other hand, the attack on the Heavenly Court wasn't necessarily a good thing. First, with Murong Yu's counterattack, the Heavenly Court obtained more resources as one faction after another was annihilated. Secondly, during this process, the news of the Heavenly Court's experts spread along with the annihilated clans. More and more people knew of the existence of the Heavenly Court, and more people wanted to join the Heavenly Court. Not only because of the various benefits of the Heavenly Court, but also because of the strength of the Heavenly Court and the slogan of the Heavenly Court. Rumble with the powerful attacks of Xiahou Zhuo and the others. A huge castle was directly razed to the ground. It was just a very powerful force, and there were actually 5 immortal Emperor Realm experts in it. The interior of the castle had been set up like an iron bucket. Ordinary forces would not be able to break through. However, Murongyu was very strong in this aspect. After attacking for half a day, they finally broke through the castle. The 5 immortal emperors were all killed by the Heavenly Court's experts. This power called Black Dragon Castle was completely uprooted. Not even a chicken or dog was left. The Black Dragon Castle was one of the 10 factions that attacked the Heavenly Court. That's the 10th. Murongyu sneered as he looked at the razed Black Dragon Castle. This was the 10th faction that Murongyu had annihilated. It had only been a few days since Murongyu annihilated the Zhang clan. In fact, the Black Dragon Castle hadn't even received the news of the Zhang clan's annihilation. After all, the Heavenly Court strength was too strong. A mere super first-rate faction couldn't even withstand a single blow from the Heavenly Court. In addition, Murongyu didn't waste time. After annihilating a faction, he immediately hurried on his way. Hichu Luo Shu could teleport. Even without a teleportation point, Murongyu could directly travel through space. This was extremely terrifying. In the immortal world, even the strongest person would willingly admit defeat in front of Murongyu's speed. After comprehending space travel, Murongyu's speed was absolutely unparalleled in the immortal world. In addition to Hichu Luoshu's teleportation, Murongyu was extremely terrifying whether he was rushing or escaping. Most importantly, these factions that attacked the Heavenly Court weren't too far away from the Heavenly Court. This was because if it was too far away, they wouldn't have been able to reach the Heavenly Court within a month. Those factions needed a month's time, but Murongyu didn't even need a day to travel this distance. Therefore, the factions that attacked the Heavenly Court were all annihilated by Murongyu before they could react. Even the factions behind them couldn't react in time. However, even if the factions behind them reacted, so what? Would they dare to step forward? This was absolutely not, because the Heavenly Court wasn't just the Heavenly Court. There was also the Heavenly Punishment Palace behind it. If the Heavenly Punishment Palace had instigated these factions to attack the Heavenly Court, it would be a declaration of war against the Heavenly Court. After destroying the Black Dragon Castle and plundering their treasures, Murongyu swept Xiahou Zhuo and the others into the Hichu Luoshu world. Then, with a shake of his hand, he tore through the void and began to travel through space. It didn't take long for him to appear in another great province. Murongyu's body shook and a pair of illusory wings of light appeared. With a fierce flap of the wings, Murongyu disappeared into the distant horizon. The Azurewood sect, the Heavenly Thunder sect, the Guangmin village, one faction after another disappeared. Murongyu annihilated all of them. Within 10 days. In 10 days, the 18 super factions that attacked the Heavenly Court were all annihilated. Apart from those who weren't part of the factions, the rest were all killed. At this point, the Heavenly Court's reputation spread far and wide. Moreover, the Heavenly Court's actions this time perfectly explained the saying, "Those who offend the Heavenly Court will be killed no matter how far away they are." Those who offend the Heavenly Court will be killed no matter how far away they are. 18 super factions were annihilated, leaving no survivors. This allowed people to witness the Heavenly Court's thunderous, ruthless, and powerful methods. It was believed that after this incident, not many factions would dare to attack the Heavenly Court. This was because once they attacked, they would have to consider whether they could withstand the wrath of the Heavenly Court. Chapter 679. It had been 3 months since Murongyu destroyed Zhang family and 18 other super first-rate forces. During these 3 months, Murongyu and many experts of the Heavenly Court stayed in Feng City. No one left. They were waiting for the people behind those forces to take action. However, 3 months had passed, and no forces took action. On the contrary, More and more experts joined the heavenly court as its prestige spread far and wide. In just 3 months, 10 rogue immortal emperors joined the heavenly court, doubling the strength of the heavenly court. The number of immortal emperors reached 20, including Dark Solitary. That would be 21 immortal emperor realm powerhouses. Their strength was terrifying to the extreme. In addition to the immortal emperors, a large number of immortal monarchs, immortal kings, and other experts joined the heavenly court. This made the heavenly court more powerful, many times more powerful than ordinary super first-rate experts. During these 3 months, Morongyu strengthened the power of the Feng City's formation again. The power of the formation became even more terrifying. Even if there were immortal venerables, the formation could resist for a while. Of course, it was impossible to completely block the attack of immortal venerables for the time being. After all, even if there were materials, they still needed the strength of experts. There was a huge gap between Murongyu's strength and that of immortal venerables. Even if everyone in the heavenly court joined forces, it would still be difficult to resist. Mengqing, you seem to have gained something in the heavenly eagle ridge. What benefits did you get? Morongyu finally had time to ask Zhao Jiqing. Yu Mengqing rolled her eyes at Morongyu and said, I thought you would never ask. As she spoke, Yu Mengqing's body trembled slightly, and a light blue sea kingdom appeared above her head. When this ocean kingdom was displayed, an extremely vast ocean aura burst out in all directions. It was mellow and powerful, and contained a shocking killing intent in its calmness. The light blue kingdom of the sea was suspended above Yu Mengqing's head. The light blue power of the sea fell down and enveloped Yu Mengqing, protecting her firmly inside. Morongyu felt that this sea kingdom was very sturdy. Even if it was just the light blue oceanic energy that fell down, it was still extremely terrifying. Ordinary experts would not be able to break through it. This is the Ocean Kingdom. Not only can it kill, but it can also provide absolute defense. Don't resist. As Yu Mengqing spoke, Morongyu suddenly felt a suction force acting on his body. Morongyu did not resist, and the scene before his eyes changed. In the next moment, he felt that he had appeared above a vast and boundless ocean. This is the ocean? A real ocean? Mu Liyue was right beside Morongyu, and her face was filled with astonishment, because she realized that everything here was real. Seawater, sea breeze. However, at this moment, the ocean was quiet. It could be said that it was calm. However, Morongyu knew that this ocean wasn't as simple as it seemed. Under the calm sea, there was an extremely terrifying, murderous intent. In fact, Morongyu even felt a sense of danger deep in his heart. This is the Ocean Kingdom. Fighting here will increase my strength by as much as 50%. As I become stronger, the Ocean Kingdom will also become stronger, and the increase in strength will also increase. Even if someone who is one realm higher than me enters here, I am confident that I can kill him. Yu Mengqing appeared and said with a smile, This world belonged to Yu Mengqing's kingdom, Yu Mengqing's domain. In this place, she was the ruler. Of course, if the enemy was too powerful, her Ocean Kingdom would be destroyed with a single punch. In fact, Morongyu felt that if he and Yu Mengqing were to fight here, he could destroy the Ocean Kingdom. After all, Yu Mengqing had just comprehended the Ocean Kingdom not long ago, and her strength was only at the Immortal King realm. However, Morongyu also knew that if it was an ordinary Immortal King realm expert who was brought here by Yu Mengqing, he would definitely be killed by Yu Mengqing. This was because this Ocean Kingdom would not only increase the strength of its owner, Yu Mengqing, but it would also suppress the enemy's strength to the greatest extent. With one increasing and one decreasing, the difference between the two was huge. After walking around the Ocean Kingdom, Mu Liyue and the others became more and more shocked. Then, they left the Ocean Kingdom. Morongyu knew that Yu Mengqing's strength used to be at the bottom of the 3 women, especially after Zhao Jiqing received the Phoenix clan's inheritance. The gap between her and Yu Mengqing became even bigger. However, Yu Mengqing's strength increased exponentially after she comprehended the Ocean Kingdom. Killing people above her level was a piece of cake. From then on, Yu Mengqing's strength became truly powerful. She could take charge of things alone. In addition to Yu Mengqing, Zhao Jiqing also gained benefits that day. However, compared to Yu Mengqing, Zhao Jiqing's benefits were a little lacking. Of course, it did not mean that Zhao Jiqing's benefits were inferior to Yu Mengqing's. The reason why it was a loss was because Zhao Jiqing's benefit was a skill of the Phoenix clan. Phoenix Phantom. The Phoenix Phantom was a supreme being of the ancient Phoenix clan, an ancestor-level existence. Zhao Jiqing could summon it to kill enemies, defend, and so on. Her strength had increased by a lot. However, it was not as magical as the Ocean Kingdom. Of course, Zhao Jiqing also had a super magic treasure that was not bad for killing people. However, the Ocean Kingdom was more magical. It was a domain. As Yu Mengqing's strength grew, the Ocean Kingdom became stronger. It could even be said that with the Ocean Kingdom, Yu Mengqing did not need any offensive or defensive magic treasures. The Ocean Kingdom had both offensive and defensive capabilities. It was very powerful. Little man, you also gained benefits. What level has your strength reached? You can actually kill an immortal emperor? Muliua looked at Murong and said faintly. Among the three women, she was the only one who did not gain anything, which made her a little depressed. With my true strength, I still can't kill an immortal emperor. Murong shook his head and smiled. Although he was strong, there was still a big gap between him and an immortal monarch. Generally speaking, Sky Immortals, Supreme Immortals, Golden Immortals, and Mystic Immortals were the lowest level of the immortal world. Immortals of these four realms could be found everywhere, and there were plenty of them. After all, in every world, the lowest level of the immortal world would always have the most people. After reaching the overarching heavenly supreme immortal, they would barely have a certain status in the immortal world. Only after reaching the golden immortal realm would one be considered an expert in the immortal world. 9 heavens mystic immortals, especially immortal kings, were considered rare experts in the immortal world. However, overarching heavenly supreme immortals and immortal kings were only the middle level of the immortal world. In the immortal world, there were not as many immortals of these realms as compared to the lowest level of the immortal world. Only after reaching the immortal monarch realm would one be considered a top expert in the immortal world. Immortal emperors were the top experts among the top experts. As for immortal sovereigns, they were the supreme beings of the immortal necropolis, the overlords of the immortal world. Every single celestial sovereign could shake the entire celestial realm. Heavenly immortals to mystic immortals were commoners in the immortal world. Overarching heavenly supreme immortals and immortal kings were only the middle level of the immortal world. Those above the immortal monarch realm were the nobles of the immortal world. One could imagine how big the gap between these realms was. It was not only in terms of status, but also in terms of strength. Of course, their status was determined by their strength. 100,000 coiling dragon power was Murong Yu's current strength. Immortal Emperor's coiling dragon power had surpassed the coiling dragon power and was at the higher level of the Earth Dragon. An ordinary Immortal Emperor's Earth Dragon power exceeded 10,000 coiling dragon power, 100,000 coiling dragon strength. Murong Yu's reply startled the girls. They nearly jumped up in fright. This number was simply too shocking. Muliua looked at Zhao Jiqing and Yu Mengqing and asked, "Sisters, how much coiling dragon power do you all have?" The three of them were currently immortal kings. Zhao Jiqing and Yu Mengqing said in unison, 10,000 coiling dragon power. We can't break through. Muliua shook her head and said, I've also reached 10,000 coiling dragon power. I can feel that this is my limit. All three of them had 10,000 coiling dragon power. However, even if they had the same amount of coiling dragon power, there was still a big gap between their combat strength. Zhao Jiqing could summon the Phoenix's silhouette. Coupled with the Super Treasure Earth Palace, she was very powerful and could kill immortal monarchs. Yu Mengqing, on the other hand, had the Ocean Country. Her combat strength should be able to kill immortal monarchs. The two girls' combat strength should be about the same. However, in comparison, Muliua's combat strength was slightly weaker. She might be able to fight immortal monarchs, but she could not kill them. Of course, she was only an intermediate immortal king. If she reached the advanced immortal king realm, she should be able to kill immortal monarchs. After all, Muliua's talent was not inferior to Zhao, Jiqing, and Yu Mengqing. In fact, she was even stronger than Yu Mengqing. 10,000 coiling dragon power is the limit of the immortal king realm. There are only a few people who have reached this limit in history. All of them are peerless geniuses. Muronyu said with a smile. Zhao Jiqing and the other two girls rolled their eyes at Muronyu. Why do I feel like you're praising yourself? Obviously, you're praising yourself in a roundabout way. If we're peerless geniuses and you have 100,000 coiling dragon power, wouldn't you be 10 times stronger than peerless geniuses? Haha, of course your husband is not an ordinary person. Moreover, you're all so outstanding. If I can't surpass you, how can I suppress you? Wouldn't I be suppressed by you guys and be unable to make a comeback? Muronyu laughed. Is that so? Zhao Jiqing and the other two girls came closer and placed their hands on Muronyu's waist. They looked at Muronyu with a smile. Muronyu shuddered and hurriedly said, I still have things to do. I still have to investigate the people behind those sections. I'll take my leave first. Before he could finish his words, Muronyu's figure disappeared in a flash. He was actually fleeing in defeat. Chapter 680. With a flash, Muronyu appeared in his own manor in the Heavenly Retribution Palace. As soon as Muronyu landed in the manor, Steward Ma also appeared in front of Muronyu respectfully. Glancing at Steward Ma, Muronyu smiled and said, Steward Ma, you've successfully advanced to the immortal monarch realm. Not bad. Hearing Muronyu's words, Steward Ma's expression became even more respectful. He said respectfully, Thank you for your nurturing, Palace Master. If it weren't for your monarch breakthrough pill, I'm afraid I wouldn't have any hope of breaking through to the immortal monarch realm in this lifetime. It turned out that the reason why Steward Ma was able to break through to the immortal monarch realm and become stronger was all because of Muronyu. In fact, before going to Tunning State last time, Muronyu had already given the monarch breakthrough pill to Steward Ma. And it was precisely because of this that Steward Ma was able to break through in one go. Steward Ma was also very clear that although his background was very powerful, he had a father who had already become a god. However, he was only a steward after all and could not leave the Heavenly Retribution Palace. Moreover, he also knew that with his aptitude, being able to cultivate to the immortal king realm was already the limit. If there was no miracle, he would never be able to enter the immortal monarch realm in his lifetime. As a steward who could never leave the Heavenly Retribution Palace in his lifetime, what miracle could he have? There was none at all, so he could only rely on his palace master. If someone like Muronyu had the pill, or if he had great achievements in the future and was willing to help them, they would be able to break through. Otherwise, they would never be able to break through to a higher realm in their lifetime. Moreover, Steward Ma knew that in the Heavenly Retribution Palace, almost all the stewards were unable to break through. There are almost no good masters like Muronyu. And not only did Muronyu reward him with a monarch breakthrough pill and various other resources, but he also did the same to everyone in his manor. In this way, whether it was Steward Ma or the other servants in the manor, they would be sincerely grateful to Muronyu and be more loyal to Muronyu. To Muronyu, the resources that were given to them were nothing at all. I once told you that if you follow me, your achievements will definitely not be low. Not to mention immortal monarchs, even immortal emperors, immortal sovereigns, and even gods are possible, Muronyu said with a faint smile. Steward Ma was excited, and his expression became even more respectful. Okay, let's forget about this matter. Do you have any news about the information I asked you to gather? Muronyu said in a deep voice, a murderous intent flashing in his eyes. What he wanted Steward Ma to investigate was the matter of the Heavenly Court being besieged. The Heavenly Court's intelligence organization did not have much power and did not have any clues about this matter. As for Butler Ma's intelligence network, it was terrifying. Palace Lord, we've made some progress. The immortal venerable that attacked you that day should be an elder of the Heavenly Penalty Palace. Steward Ma said through voice transmission. An elder of the Heavenly Punishing Palace? Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light as his killing intent surged. With a wave of his hand, the two of them disappeared and reappeared in the Hichu, Luoshu world. Which elder is it? Murong Yu said with a murderous intent. Murong Yu was really furious. If it was someone from the Devil's Sect or the Immortal Palace that attacked him, he would not be so angry. But someone from the Heavenly Punishing Palace attacked him. After all, they were from the same sect and wanted to kill Murong Yu. How could Murong Yu not be angry? However, while he was angry, he also had some doubts. Even the Heavenly Punishing Palace, experts who had reached the immortal venerable realm, belonged to the high and mighty grand elder level. Experts of this level basically did not care about the affairs of the world and cultivated all day long in an attempt to break through the realm and become gods. Why would they attack him? Moreover, Murong Yu did not know these people at all. Not to mention these high and mighty immortal venerables. Murong Yu did not know some of the elders of the Heavenly Punishing Palace. Apart from Qin Xian, he had not interacted with anyone else. It should be Grand Elder Yin Yu who did it. Steward Wang said in a deep voice. Seeing the puzzled look on Murong Yu's face, Steward Ma continued. He has a disciple who is also an elder of the Heavenly Punishing Palace and an immortal emperor-level expert. He has some connections with you, Palace Master. Murong Yu's eyes flashed, and he asked, Connections with me? What do you mean? Is it that elder, Qin Xian? Steward Ma shook his head and said, It's not Qin Xian. This person is called Guo Fan, and his strength has reached the immortal emperor level. His faction's influence in the Heavenly Punishing Palace is not weak. Palace Lord, you might not understand what I'm trying to say. Do you know where Guo Fan comes from? He comes from the Chinese cultivation world. Murong Yu slightly narrowed his eyes and said, In that case, why did he attack me? Did I kill his descendant? Murong Yu thought for a moment, and it seemed to be possible. He had killed many people, so it was normal for him to kill Guo Fan's descendant. It's more serious than killing his descendant. Palace Master, you destroyed his orthodoxy. Steward Ma shook his head and said, Is the founder of the Chinese cultivation world's Fectus sect. Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he sneered in his heart. He finally understood why this Guo Fan wanted to deal with him. The Fectus sect had already been destroyed by him, even though it had reappeared later on. However, that Fectus sect had nothing to do with Guo Fan. Destroying an orthodoxy was more terrifying than killing its descendant. After all, there are many descendants. If he didn't kill all of them, his legacy wouldn't be severed. Murong Yu, on the other hand, had completely uprooted the Fectus sect. If it was Murong Yu, he wouldn't have let go of someone who destroyed his orthodoxy. Guo Fan has many disciples who ascended from the Fectus sect. Steward Ma said. Murong Yu nodded and sneered. It seems like even though I've destroyed the Fectus sect, I haven't completely destroyed it. These remnants of the Fectus sect are really courting death. I'll find a chance to destroy them all. Palace Master, they have the support of Yin Yu, an immortal reverent grand elder. You're no match for them now. Steward Ma hurriedly advised. He was afraid that Murong Yu would just go to them. Wouldn't that be the same as courting death? It's fine. Even an immortal reverend can't do anything to me. These people are dead meat. Murong Yu sneered. Thousands of thoughts were spinning in his mind. He was already thinking of how to kill these remnants of the Fectus sect. Steward Ma, those dozens of forces should be Guo Fan's forces, right? Murong Yu said faintly. No, Yin, you was the only one who attacked that day. There's someone else behind those forces. They seem to be from the Sacred Gate. Sacred Gate. Murong Yu furrowed his brows slightly. He didn't have any conflicts of interest with this giant, nor did he have any dealings with it. Palace Master, there's a crazy rumor going around that the Heavenly Court has countless king-breaking pills, monarch-breaking pills, and all sorts of weapons and treasures. Although the sacred gate is a giant in the immortal world, the king-breaking pills and monarch-breaking pills are also very attractive to them. If they have a large amount of king-breaking pills and monarch-breaking pills, a large number of immortal reverends will appear in their forces. With more immortal reverends, the number of immortal emperors will naturally increase. When the top experts become stronger, they can unify the immortal world. Now, other than the three giants on the surface, there was also the Heavenly Punisher Palace. These four giants kept each other in check, and their strength was about the same. Therefore, there was no war in the immortal world. However, if a sect suddenly had a large number of experts, this balance would be broken. At that time, the immortal world would be thrown into chaos. Moreover, other than these four giants, there were many other super forces in the immortal world. The strength of these forces wasn't any weaker than these four super forces. Since the sacred gate has made a move, I guess the others can't help but make a move, right? Even the Heavenly Punisher Palace won't be able to hold back. Morong sneered. A huge pressure suddenly pressed down on his back. All along, Morong had been worried that these giants would make a move on him. He had been working hard to improve his cultivation, but now it seemed that these giants wouldn't be far from falling out with him. Once someone made a move, Morong would probably suffer a thunderous blow from the Immortal Palace. The Immortal Palace had been eyeing Morong covetously for a long time. It was just that they didn't dare to make a move. Morong believed that once the Immortal Palace made a move, they would definitely use their strongest attack to take him down directly. With his current strength, he wouldn't be able to resist at all. Palace Master, you have to be careful. Recently, many forces have become restless and want to harm you. Housekeeper Ma looked worried as he spoke. He had all this information, so he naturally knew what Morong was going to face. It doesn't matter. Morong sneered. If these forces really wanted to make a move, Morong would definitely make them bleed a lot. At most, Morong would escape back to the Huasha cultivation world. That way, no one would be able to do anything to him. Moreover, Shenzhen was gradually becoming stronger now. With the support of the monarch-breaking pill and various elixirs, the 100,000 troops had all broken through to the immortal monarch realm. On the side of the Celestial Palace, there were also tens of thousands of immortal monarch realm experts. Once Morong got his hands on the monarch-breaking pill, a large number of immortal emperors would appear in Shenzhen and the Celestial Palace. Hundreds of thousands of immortal emperors? Even the Immortal Palace would tremble in the face of such a terrifying force. However, when he thought of the star points needed to exchange for the monarch-breaking pill, Morong couldn't help but gnash his teeth. After destroying the forces that attacked the city, Morong had already obtained 10 billion star points. Originally, Morong thought that 10 billion star points would be more than enough to exchange for one monarch-breaking pill. However, Housekeeper Tion told him that if he wanted to exchange for the monarch-breaking pill, he would need at least 50 billion star points. 50 billion. It should be known that the monarch-breaking pill was only worth 100 million star points. This was an increase of 500 times. And if Morong wanted to break through his current realm and reach the immortal monarch realm, the star points he needed were even more terrifying. 100 billion. Morong thought for a while. He could only get enough star points to exchange for the monarch-breaking pill first. He didn't know how long it would take to earn enough star points to increase his realm. Chapter 681. Morong come out. Suddenly, a loud shout came from outside the manor. At the same time, an extremely violent aura swept over and covered the entire manor, suppressing heaven and earth. Morong's face changed slightly, and killing intent flashed across his eyes. Butler Ma's face also changed because he realized that the person who came was much stronger than him. He was at least a late-stage immortal monarch expert. With a flash, Morong disappeared into the distance and appeared in the void outside the manor. Suddenly, a group of more than 10 people appeared in Morong's sight. Among them, a young man in the lead was looking at him with disdain. "Who is making a ruckus here?" Morong asked with a gloomy face. "You are Morong?" I heard that you are the enforcer of 2 cultivation worlds. You can kill immortal emperors when you are only at the immortal king realm. Seeing Murongyu, the young man took a step forward and looked at Murongyu with disdain. Murongyu looked at the young man with a frown. At first glance, Murongyu felt that this person was not simple. His strength had already reached the late-stage immortal monarch realm, and his blood was surging, containing extremely terrifying power. This person's strength was definitely not simple. He was much stronger than ordinary late-stage immortal monarchs. Moreover, this person gave Murongyu a familiar feeling. That's right, Enforcer. This young man is also Enforcer. Murongyu narrowed his eyes slightly. I was just thinking about how to increase my strength quickly, and this idiot came knocking on my door. After killing him and subduing his cultivation world's origin, I will become the enforcer of 3 cultivation worlds. At that time, my talent will become even stronger. Murongyu sneered in his heart. After becoming enforcer, he could use the world's origin to teleport back anytime and anywhere. However, this was not what Murongyu cared about. This was because he had never used this function before. What he cared about was that after becoming a Punisher, his aptitude would increase. This was because he realized that ever since he became the enforcer of the wind and fire world of cultivation, his talent had increased by a lot. Furthermore, this innate talent was constantly improving. It was extremely difficult to improve one's talent. On the other hand, the world's origin was constantly cleansing the executioner's talent, making the executioner's talent increasingly powerful. This was also the reason why Punishers were so much more powerful than people of the same level of strength. The talent of a single enforcer would become very powerful, let alone multiple enforcers. Murongyu even knew that if he became the enforcer of multiple cultivation worlds, his talent would be raised to an extremely terrifying level. At that time, he would be able to cultivate the record of chaotic celestial body with twice the result with half the effort. In the future, he wouldn't even need the heavenly punishment token to increase his cultivation. The person in front of him was an enforcer. Looking at the person who had come, Murongyu's killing intent surged. This guy had overestimated himself and dared to provoke him. He had to kill him. I am Murongyu. Who are you? Murongyu asked indifferently. Enforcer of the 9 profound cultivation world, Su-E, the young man, who was Su-E, looked at Murongyu with disdain and continued. I heard that you are very powerful. You can kill an immortal emperor as an immortal king. I like such a genius aptitude very much. What I like the most is to kill geniuses, especially when we are both enforcers. Palace Lord, this person is from Guofun's faction. He usually acts tyrannically in the Heavenly Punishment Palace and commits all sorts of crimes. At this moment, Steward Ma's voice rang out in Murongyu's mind. Murongyu nodded slightly. When he saw Su-E, he saw the pitch-black halo on his body. If he killed this person, he should be able to obtain a few 100,000 stars and strip him of his identity as enforcer. When he thought of this, Murongyu couldn't help but become excited and his killing intent surged. Trash-like existence. Are you courting death? Scram immediately. Murongyu's face suddenly turned cold, and he coldly shouted at Su-E. Su-E was stunned for a moment before a sinister expression appeared on his face. Boundless killing intent erupted from his body and surged towards Murongyu like a tidal wave. Unfortunately, when the killing intent reached Murongyu, it automatically dispersed to the side and had no effect on Murongyu. Very good. Boy, you have successfully aroused my killing intent. Today I will kill you. Boy, if you have the guts, come to the plaza with me, and we will fight to the death. Su-E was sinister, and his killing intent soared into the sky. He wanted nothing more than to slap Murongyu to death. Very good, that's exactly what I want. Murongyu looked coldly at Su-E. His figure flashed, and he soared into the sky. Then, in a flash, he disappeared from where he was. What a fast speed. Su-E squinted his eyes and then laughed sinisterly. No matter how fast you are, you will definitely die today. After saying this, his figure flashed, and he disappeared from where he was. There was a huge plaza in front of the Five Fingers Mountain. All the disciples of the Heavenly Punisher Palace could fight to the death here. In addition, fighting in other places was against the sect's rules. When Sui arrived at the plaza, Muronyu had been waiting for him for a long time. "I have been waiting for you for a long time," Muronyu said indifferently with a hint of disdain in his eyes. Obviously, Muronyu despised Suyi's speed. "Bastard!" Sui was furious. "Boy, this is the declaration of a life-and-death duel. As long as you sign it, you will die." Sui laughed sinisterly and threw a contract to Muronyu. A cold light flashed in Muronyu's eyes. This bastard had even prepared this. It seemed that he was determined to kill him. It was obvious that Sui had been instructed by Guofun. However, Muronyu was puzzled. Even a Celestial Prime expert could not kill him. Why did Sui think that he could kill him? Yes, I was lucky to escape at that time. I didn't show how powerful I was. If I fight here, I can't leave the plaza. Otherwise, I will lose. If I don't leave the plaza, I will give Sui a chance to kill me. In fact, it's not impossible for that old bastard Yenyu to secretly take action. Muronyu's mind suddenly flashed with a flash of understanding. Everything was now clear as day. However, since that is the case, I will directly kill Sui and obtain his 9 profound worlds' origin. I will become the enforcer of the 9 profound world. At that time, my talent will become even more powerful. Once I'm stronger, I'll kill that old bastard Yenyu. Muronyu sneered inwardly as he signed his name on the contract. There was no problem with the contract. Very good. Seeing that Muronyu had signed the contract, Sui waved his hand, and the contract flew out and landed on a high platform in the distance. He then looked at Muronyu with a sinister smile and said, "Boy, you probably don't know that my strength is enough to kill an ordinary Celestial Emperor." "Ha!" Sui laughed maniacally. At the same time, his body shook violently. An incomparably terrifying aura burst out and rushed to the sky. The terrifying aura caused the surrounding space to tremble as if it would shatter at any moment. "In my eyes, you are a piece of trash, a piece of trash. You must have been instructed by Guofun and the rest of the Tianji sect to kill me, right? Today, I will kill you. In the future, I will also kill Yenyu's lineage and Yenyu." Muronyu's cold voice rang in Suyi's mind. Sui was enraged and roared, "Die." As he spoke, he punched out a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth. It broke the sky and blasted towards Muronyu's head. He wanted to crush Muronyu's head. Swoosh! Muronyu's figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. As a result, Suyi's attack missed its target and landed on the void. It actually shattered the void and created a large hole. Space slash! Muronyu roared in his heart. He struck out his hands, and his fingers were like swords, directly slashing towards Sui. 9 profound divine palm, heaven and earth change. Sui shouted and slapped down. The heaven and earth changed color, the sun and the moon dimmed, and the earth trembled. It was as if the entire heaven and earth were subdued. Dark, godly demon Prajna, an incomparably huge image of a godly demon, appeared in the void above Muronyu's head. Then, this godly demon stretched out a large hand, passing through the obstruction of space and time, directly grabbing at Suyi's head. It wanted to pluck his head off. 9 profound divine palm. Ocean monstrous sky. The illusory image shouted and punched out with both fists. Suddenly, the void around him turned into a raging ocean. The ocean formed by the power of the ocean turned into millions of heavy waves, strangling towards the dark, godly demon. Asterisk rumble. Both sides quickly and violently collided, and an extremely terrifying shockwave erupted. Rip! Asterisk the surrounding void finally couldn't bear the burden and was directly torn apart by the terrifying shockwave, shattering into pieces. Muronyu and Sui were also forced back by the huge shockwave. Good thief, you are indeed powerful. However, you're definitely going to die today. Sui laughed sinisterly and attacked again. He opened and closed, and one after another, big moves poured down. Countless divine lights flashed, bursting out and drowning Murongyu, wanting to suppress and kill Murongyu. Murongyu used the army formula, and the battle formula was circulated to the extreme. As the army formula lingered around him, he turned into a ray of light and directly cut into the endless divine lights. With a flip of his hands, he unleashed one ultimate move after another, fighting a great battle with Su-yi. The void collapsed, the heaven fell, and the earth cracked. The sun and the moon lost their light. The sky and the earth were covered. The earth trembled, and the rivers were cut off. The two of them unleashed their ultimate moves, and it was hard to tell who had the upper hand. What a terrifying aura. Is this a battle between two immortal emperors? At this moment, a large number of people had gathered around the square. All of them were shocked as they watched the battle between Murongyu and Su-yi. Neither of them is an immortal emperor. One is a late-stage immortal monarch, and the other is only a late-stage immortal king. However, both of them can erupt with the strength of an immortal emperor. Killing people above their level is as easy as chopping vegetables. An immortal king can erupt with the strength of an immortal emperor? Who is this person? He is so powerful. Many people in the crowd were shocked. Everyone tried to use their eyesight to get a clear view of the battle between Murongyu and Jian Wushuang. However, the two of them were already fighting with all their might. Their killing intent was so intense that those who weren't strong enough couldn't even see their figures clearly. Chapter 682. Rumble. Above the square, terrifying energy continued to erupt. It was earth-shattering and extremely terrifying. Murongyu and Su-yi were locked in a stalemate. Bang! Murongyu and Su-yi violently collided with each other once more. The frightening power shattered the surrounding space and sent the two of them flying away once more. Puff! Su-yi spat out a mouthful of blood. He had been injured. On the other hand, Murongyu was only sent flying. He did not look injured at all. It was obvious who was stronger. Very well. Since you've injured me, then you can go to hell. 9 profound divine fist descent of the celestial demons. Su-yi roared as he punched out with both hands. Suddenly, the shadows of the celestial demons appeared in the void. They carried a terrifying aura of destruction and shattered the firmament. They charged toward Murongyu, intending to kill Murongyu. Child's play. I know your strength now. If you're not hiding anything, then you can die now. Murongyu's face was indifferent as he spoke with disdain. Then his body swayed, and he disappeared from the spot. Boom! A celestial fist exploded above Su-yi's head. It carried the might of heaven and earth and shook the firmament as it came down rapidly. Su-yi roared as he punched out the 9 profound divine fist with both of his fists. Boom! After an earth-shattering explosion, Su-yi let out a blood-curdling scream as he was blasted deep into the ground. At the same time, Murongyu was also sent flying. Space strangulation. Space storm. Murongyu roared in his heart as he unleashed the power of space and attacked Su-yi. Murongyu mobilized the strange and unpredictable power of space and turned into a killing god as it charged toward Su-yi. At the same time, Murongyu shook his hand and the extinguishing immortal sword, which had been upgraded to an imperial weapon, appeared in his hand. Sword River Snowstorm. With a slash of the sword, a river formed by countless sword radiants appeared in front of Murongyu. It carried a terrifying power and charged toward Su-yi. Ah! Su-yi roared. Divine light flickered on his body, and a pagoda rushed out from his body. It soared into the sky and attacked the sword river that was bombarding him. Yin-yang Cauldron, kill him! Murongyu shouted coldly. Immediately, the Yin-yang Cauldron appeared above the illusory figure's head out of thin air and smashed down rapidly. Under the attack of the Space Force, Su-yi's protective power was constantly trembling, as if it was about to shatter. Meanwhile, the torrential river collided with Su-yi's pagoda. The sky fell and the earth cracked. Ah! Break! Su-yi roared. Once again, a terrifying power erupted from his body. It actually shattered the boundless spatial energy. Then, He soared into the sky and punched the yin-yang cauldron. Clang! Su-yi fiercely punched the yin-yang cauldron, which was as big as a divine mountain, and a loud sound of metal clashing resounded. However, Su-yi did not expect the yin-yang cauldron to be so heavy. Even if he attacked with all his might, he was still unable to send the yin-yang cauldron flying. On the contrary, the yin-yang cauldron smashed down at an even faster speed. Su-yi roared again and punched out again. In an instant, he had punched tens of thousands of times. Every punch landed on the yin-yang cauldron, and a loud sound of metal clashing resounded. The void really shattered, and the people outside the square kept retreating. Rumble, finally, the yin-yang cauldron was sent flying by Su-yi. Whoosh! However, at this moment, a strong aura of death suddenly rose in Su-yi's heart. Su-yi was shocked. He didn't even think about it before he threw a punch at him. Puff! A sword radiance tore through. Then, the illusory figure's arm soared into the sky, accompanied by a bloody light. Ah! My arm! Su-yi screamed. His entire arm had been cut off by Murong-Yu's sword. Kill! Murong-Yu roared. He stomped on the void, stepped on the sky, and attacked again. Su-yi was furious. He roared again and again. However, he seemed to be helpless. He was constantly beaten back by Murong-Yu. At this moment, Su-yi was terrified. He was shocked to find that Murong-Yu was getting stronger. The injuries on his body were all healed in the blink of an eye. Therefore, after fighting for so long, Murong-Yu seemed as if he had not been injured at all. Moreover, Murong-Yu's strength seemed to be endless. There was no consumption at all. On the other hand, Su-yi's injuries were increasing and could not be healed at all. Moreover, after fighting for so long, he had used up a lot of his strength. If he continued to fight, he would definitely die. At this moment, Su-yi could not help but regret. Why did he have to fight to the death with Murong-Yu? He did not have any enmity with Murong-Yu, and they did not even have any interaction. With fear in his heart, Su-yi's aura plummeted. He was already suppressed by Murong-Yu. At this moment, he was even more unbearable. Bang! Murong-Yu's palm landed on Su-yi's body. A terrifying force exploded, and Su-yi's chest caved in. Su-yi spat out a mouthful of blood. Some fragments of his internal organs were also spurted out from his mouth and nose. Whoosh! A sword light tore through the air, and Su-yi once again let out a blood-curdling scream. His other hand was also chopped off. At this point, Su-yi could not even use 50% of his strength. Su-yi, who could not even use 50% of his strength, was no match for Murong-Yu. Murong-Yu dashed forward. He stretched out his hand and grabbed Su-yi's head like an eagle's claw. Then, with a shake of his hand, Su-yi's head was plucked off. At the same time, Murong-Yu kicked Su-yi's body fiercely, causing his body to explode into a cloud of blood mist. Explode, Murong-Yu shouted. His 5 fingers exerted force and crushed Su-yi's head into a cloud of blood mist. Whoosh! The moment Su-yi's head exploded, an almost invisible gray energy rushed out and flew into the distance, trying to escape. Let's see where you can run to. Jiuxian Cultivation World's origin. Murong-Yu roared. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the ball of energy. The gray energy was the Jiuxian Cultivation World's origin that was attached to Su-yi's body. After Su-yi was killed, it flew out and tried to fly back to the Jiuxian Cultivation World. However, how could Murong-Yu let it escape? Bang! The ball of origin energy ruthlessly slammed into the transparent barrier. Murong-Yu already knew that the origin energy of the 9 profound cultivation world would escape, so he'd already sealed off the space around it. Be a good girl and stay here. Murong-Yu shouted coldly. His hand had already grabbed the Jiuxian cultivation world's origin and sealed it in the Hichu Luoshu world. Right at that moment, an extremely frightening power descended from the sky. An enormous hand stretched out from the depths of the heavenly retribution palace, blotting out the sky and covering the earth as it fiercely slapped down on Murong-Yu. His speed was so fast, and his strength was so terrifying that it was simply shocking. Murong Yu's expression changed. An aura of death rose from the bottom of his heart. Senior immortal. At this moment, whether it was Murong Yu or the others, this thought flashed through their minds. Murong Yu also discovered that this hand belonged to the person who had tried to sneak an attack on him the other day, the one who wanted to kill him. Yin Yu. At this moment, Murong Yu finally confirmed that the person who had attacked him that day was Yin Yu, the Grand Elder of the Heavenly Punisher Palace. At this moment, Murong Yu only had one thought in his mind: block Yin Yu's attack and escape from the Heavenly Punisher Palace. Boom! At this moment, the Hichu Luoshu and the Yin Cauldron were summoned by Murong Yu. They floated in the air above his head and exploded with light and a surging aura. Invincible 10 directions. Murong Yu roared. He concealed his spirit in chi and used his strongest defensive move. He actually wanted to take Yin Yu's attack head-on. The Yin Cauldron, which was like a divine mountain, soared into the sky and fiercely collided with the hand that was slamming down. The hand fiercely shook and directly sent the Yin Cauldron flying. It was actually unable to resist. Rumble. After the Yin Cauldron of heaven and earth was sent flying, the giant hand quickly slapped down and directly bombarded the He-Tu in the Book of Luo. The He-Tu in the Book of Luo transformed into an incomparably huge picture scroll and forcefully endured the attack of the giant hand. Crash Murong Yu guided part of the power into the Hichu Luoshu World Conference. At the same time, the black lotus in his body also erupted. Together with Murong Yu, he operated the power of space to the extreme and tried his best to transfer the power over. Rumble. The Yin Cauldron consumed a little of the power of the hand and guided part of it into the Hichu Luoshu world while the other part was transferred. However, part of the power directly bombarded Murong Yu's body. Bang! The incomparably terrifying power fiercely bombarded Murong Yu's body and instantly broke the defensive move, Invincible 10 Directions. Immediately, the terrifying power directly acted on Murong Yu's body. Puff! Murong Yu's hands immediately exploded into 2 clouds of blood mist. At the same time, the frightening energy shot towards Murong Yu with incomparable speed, intending to blast him into smithereens. Life force. Murong Yu roared. The surging life force madly rushed out like a stormy sea and repaired Murong Yu's injuries. Puff! 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 After Murong Yu's arms were blown into blood mist, his whole body quickly cracked. Fortunately, the power of life surged madly to quickly repair the cracks. Murong Yu was crazily destroying and repairing at the same time. He was enduring an unprecedented amount of pain. Explode for me! Murong Yu roared as an endless amount of energy erupted from his body, forcing the invading energy back. At the same time, Murong Yu's body fiercely slammed into the void. He turned into a streak of light and rushed into the void, fleeing into the distance. After Murong Yu entered the space, the Yin Cauldron and Hichu Luoshu also smashed the void and followed closely. Yin Yu, you old bastard, one day I will personally kill you. Although Murong Yu had left, his voice continued to resound in the heavenly punishing palace for a long time. Chapter 683. Asterisk Rumble. Asterisk the moment Murong Yu disappeared into the void, another hand reached out from the depths of the heavenly Punisher Palace. It traversed billions of space-time and passed through all obstacles before transforming into a divine claw. It directly pierced through Murong Yu and jumped into the void that had yet to fully recover. It wanted to grab Murong Yu from the depths of the void. Asterisk Rumble. Asterisk the aura of the giant hand was extremely terrifying and domineering, perfectly illustrating the strength of an immortal venerable expert. After the giant hand entered the void began to crumble inch by inch. The void shattered and a huge black hole appeared in the sky. This was because too much of the void had been shattered and hadn't been repaired. In fact, the black hole was actually an environment within the void. It was a layer of space between the living space and the turbulent flow of space. Murong-Yu was shuttling through this layer of the void, instantly traversing billions of miles away. The void continued to shatter as waves of terrifying aura leaked out. One could even vaguely see the turbulent flow of space. However, no matter how terrifying the power of the giant hand was, it couldn't catch up to Murong-Yu. Chasing after a person in the void, the strength required to do so was extremely terrifying, at least with Yin Yu's current ability. At a place billions of miles away from the Heavenly Punisher Palace, a crack suddenly appeared in the void, following which a figure emerged from the void. Then, the figure disappeared again. The crack in the sky was automatically repaired as if nothing had happened. In fact, the person who had just appeared was Murong-Yu. However, as soon as he came out of the void, he immediately entered the Hichu Luoshu world. No, it should be said that he entered the Heavenly Punisher Command. At this moment, the Heavenly Punisher Command was once again destroyed by a terrifying power. However, it was slightly better than the previous time. This time, only about 70% of it was destroyed. Time accelerated by 100,000 times. After Murong-Yu entered the Heavenly Punisher Command, he immediately began to accelerate time. As a large number of immortal veins were burned, time began to accelerate. Yin-Yu, the Heavenly Punisher Palace. Murong-Yu's eyes flashed coldly as killing intent surged. This time, Murong-Yu's injuries were very serious. They were about the same as the previous time. Under the cleansing of life force, it should be able to be repaired very quickly. However, the fury in Murong-Yu's heart burned fiercely, and his killing intent soared. However, Murong-Yu could only suppress all the anger in his heart and begin to heal himself. As long as he didn't die, no matter how severe his injuries were, it was nothing to Murong-Yu. With time accelerated by 100,000 times, only 3 days had passed in the immortal world. However, Murong-Yu had already spent close to 1,000 years. After 1,000 years, Murong-Yu's injuries were healed. Phew! Murong-Yu spat out a mouthful of turbid air and slowly opened his eyes. 2 rays of light shot out from his eyes and shredded the space within 100,000 miles in front of him, turning a mountain peak 1 billion miles away into dust. However, very quickly, Murong-Yu's eyes dimmed. He did not reveal his sharpness, but returned to his original state. Yin-Yu, Heavenly Punisher Palace, you have disappointed me. Murong-Yu sat cross-legged on the ground, and the killing intent in his heart burst out once again. This time, he and Su had a fair duel. Outsiders were not allowed to interfere. However, Yin-Yu, the Heavenly Punisher Palace's Grand Elder, actually took action and wanted to kill Murong-Yu. This person was trampling on the rules, trampling on the Heavenly Punisher Palace's rules. He had relied on his incomparably powerful strength to attack Murong-Yu time and time again. How shameless! For this shameless person, Murong-Yu had already written his name on his must-kill list. As long as Murong-Yu had enough strength, he would definitely kill this person. However, although Murong-Yu could kill immortal Emperor experts now, the gap between him and an immortal venerable expert was too big. In fact, Murong-Yu even felt that Yin-Yu did not use his full strength. It was also because of this that Murong-Yu was able to block it so easily. Otherwise, Murong-Yu would have to use all of his trump cards. If that happened, many of Murong-Yu's trump card would be completely exposed. This was something Murong-Yu did not want to see. In addition to the shameless Yin-Yu, Murong-Yu was also very angry with the people of the Heavenly Punisher Palace. Yin-Yu had trampled on the Heavenly Punisher Palace's rules and directly attacked him. In principle, the other experts of the Heavenly Punisher Palace should have stopped Yin-Yu from attacking. However, Murong-Yu did not see anyone attack. They simply allowed Yin-Yu to do whatever he wanted and attack him. These old bastards are all up to no good. I'm afraid that each of them has their own ideas. Thinking about it, Murong-Yu sneered. He already knew what those old fellows of the Heavenly Punisher Palace were planning. Recently, the Heavenly Court's development was really too terrifying. In a short period of time, the Heavenly Court's strength had already approached that of a super force. Moreover, Because of the large number of King Breakthrough Pills and Immortal Breakthrough Pills, many people had already guessed that the Heavenly Court had the foundation of a super force. With such a terrifying foundation, coupled with Murong Yu's methods, the Heavenly Court would definitely become a super force in the shortest time possible. In the immortal world, there are only a few giants and super forces. All along, very few forces had become super forces. Other than not having such a foundation, it was also because of the suppression from other forces. No one wanted to see a force grow quickly and become a force on the same level as them, or even surpass them. This was a relationship of benefits. Think about it. If the Heavenly Court became a super force, then how much would the original super forces lose out on benefits? Any super force would have many subordinate forces under them. They controlled countless provinces and had all kinds of industries. If the Heavenly Court rose, how could it be limited to the Phone province? It would definitely develop its own forces and control other provinces. In this way, it would have a conflict of interest with other forces. As for the Heavenly Punisher Palace, the Heavenly Court would become stronger and stronger. In the end, it would exceed the control of the Heavenly Punisher Palace. Because, although the Heavenly Court was an independent force, it was also a part of the Heavenly Punisher Palace. If the Heavenly Court continued to develop, then even if it couldn't surpass the Heavenly Punisher Palace, the Heavenly Court status would increase. However, Murong Yu's position in the Heavenly Punisher Palace would only grow higher and higher. When the time came and he killed those people, he might even become the Palace Master of the Heavenly Punisher Palace. Those in power in the Heavenly Punisher Palace naturally didn't want to share their power and wouldn't allow such a situation to happen. At this time, Yin Yu jumped out. Whether it was the Heavenly Punisher Palace's tacit approval or Yin Yu's own idea, the Heavenly Punisher Palace had tacitly approved of Yin Yu's actions. In other words, the Heavenly Punisher Palace had already started to openly suppress Murong Yu. As long as they found an opportunity, Murong Yu believed that Yin Yu or even more people would make a move against him. As long as they killed him, they would obtain his treasures and control the Heavenly Court. Murong, you only needed to think for a moment to guess what these people were thinking. If there's an opportunity, these people will definitely launch the fiercest attack against me and directly kill me. As for the Heavenly Court, these experts probably won't directly make a move. Murong Yu's face darkened as he thought to himself. After killing Murong Yu, they would be able to control the Heavenly Court. Therefore, no one was willing to destroy the Heavenly Court. Of course, if they really couldn't kill Murong Yu, these people would start to eradicate the Heavenly Court. The situation was grim. The Heavenly Punisher Palace has already made a move. The Immortal Palace, Devil Sect, and even the Sacred Gate should also make a move. The other large forces probably won't sit still. Murong Yu frowned as he felt an incomparable pressure. Strength. I need to increase my strength. Not only my own strength, but the Heavenly Court, Shenzhen, and the Celestial Palace must all become stronger. These bastards want to suppress me? After I increase my strength, I'll kill all of you one by one. What Heavenly Punisher Palace, Sacred Gate, and Immortal Palace, I won't leave a single one alive. Murong Yu's killing intent sword. Originally, Murong Yu didn't want to dominate the immortal world and unify the immortal world. He only wanted to cultivate and increase his strength. However, it seemed like others were forcing him to dominate the immortal world and unify the world. Since this was the case, Murong Yu's thoughts became firm. The most important thing now is to exchange for the Emperor-breaking pill. When the time comes, whether it's Shenzhen, the Heavenly Court, or the Celestial Palace, a large number of immortal Emperor experts will appear. The Immortal Emperor army is enough to wipe out any force in the immortal world. Even immortal supremes can be killed. When there are enough ants, they can bite an elephant to death. Since you're forcing me, then prepare to be burned by the Heavenly Court's anger. However, I can't exchange for the Emperor-breaking pill in a short period of time. Then, I'll first become the enforcer of the 9 profound cultivation world. When my talent is improved, I might be able to break through to the next realm. As he spoke, Murong Yu flipped his hand, and the origin source of the 9 profound cultivation world appeared in his palm, churning continuously. If Murong Yu wanted to break through, he could only rely on his own understanding. Even if he used the monarch breaking pill, the emperor breaking pill would be useless. Even if he used his stars to exchange for it to increase his cultivation, he still needed his own understanding. And after becoming the 9 profound cultivation world, Murong Yu's talent would be improved. The more cultivation worlds he controlled, the more terrifying Murong Yu's talent would be. If that's the case, then I might as well kill all the enforcers of the Heavenly Punisher Palace and become the enforcer of all the cultivation worlds in the Yanhuang Immortal World. This thought flashed through Murong Yu's mind. After all, if he wanted to unify the immortal world in the future, the Heavenly Punisher Palace would definitely be destroyed. This was because the Heavenly Punisher Palace wasn't recognized by heaven. Like the Immortal Palace and the Devil's Sect, it was just an ordinary power. And Murong Yu was the real owner of the Heavenly Punisher token. He could punish on behalf of heaven. After becoming the enforcer of the 9 profound cultivation world, I'll find a chance to kill the other enforcers. Now, refine the origin source of the 9 profound cultivation world. Murong Yu roared and began to refine the origin source of the 9 profound cultivation world. The origin source of the 9 profound cultivation world continued to churn in Murong Yu's palm, struggling and resisting. Murong Yu sneered. In a flash, he appeared in the origin source of the Huaxia cultivation world. Chapter 684. Origin of the Jiuxian cultivation world. If you don't surrender now, when will you? Murong Yu released the origin of the Jiuxian cultivation world and shouted in the origin of the Huaxia cultivation world. Whoosh! As soon as Murong Yu released the origin of the Jiuxian cultivation world, it turned into a ray of light and shot into the distance. However, it was all in vain. Even if it was a part of the origin of the Jiuxian cultivation world, it would not be able to escape. The origin of the Huaxia cultivation world was much stronger than it. Moreover, there was not only the origin of the Huaxia cultivation world, but also the origin of the wind and fire cultivation worlds. Even without these 2 origins, it would not be able to escape from Murong Yu. 2 origins? Seeing the other 2 origins, the origin of the Jiuxian cultivation world could not help but be shocked. At this moment, Murong Yu reached out his hand and grabbed it again. Surrender or disappear completely. Don't doubt my ability. Murong Yu looked coldly at the origin of the Jiuxian cultivation world. Murong Yu was already filled with killing intent. If the origin of the Jiuxian cultivation world was not willing to surrender, Murong Yu would have to kill it. Not only this part, but all the origin energy in the Jiuxian cultivation world would be wiped out as well. You have already controlled the origins of 2 cultivation worlds. Let me go. The origin of the Jiuxian cultivation world was unwilling to surrender and said in a low voice, "Surrender to me. It's good for me and you. I'll give you 10 breaths. If you don't surrender, you don't need to continue living in this world. I'll immediately go to the Jiuxian cultivation world and kill you completely." Murong Yu said with a murderous look and started to count down. Wait! The origin of the Jiuxian cultivation world called out to Murong Yu, but it was deep in thought. Since Murong Yu had subdued the origins of 2 cultivation worlds, he naturally had the ability to destroy 1 cultivation world. The origin of the Jiuxian cultivation world did not doubt Murong Yu's words at all. Although the wind and fire cultivation world's origins are the worst, the Huaxia cultivation world's origins are almost the strongest. Moreover, it seems that the wind and fire world's origin is gradually getting stronger. It is no longer the last origin. Could it be because it's submitted to this person? Yes, that should be it. Otherwise, the origin of the fire world's Xian cultivation world is the worst. But it's obviously leveled up. If I follow this person, a Xian S world's cultivation world S world SSSS origin TS halves origin it it bs worlds. This beat S is world B S It was truly a miracle for this person to be able to refine two source energies and even more source energies. Who knows? If this person achieves great things in the future, I might be able to level up as well. Thinking of this, the origin of the Jiao Xian cultivation world quickly expressed its submission. Then, a smile appeared on Murong Yu's face. Seeing Murong Yu's expression, the Huaxia cultivation world, the wind and fire world, and even the origin of the Jiao Xian cultivation world, couldn't help but look down on Murong Yu. This guy changed his attitude too quickly. In that case, let's go to the Jiao Xian cultivation world, Murong Yu said in a deep voice. Then, under the guidance of the origin of the Jiao Xian cultivation world, Murong Yu directly traveled to the Jiao Xian cultivation world. Only in the origin space of the world could one be completely refined and recognized. Only then could one control that part of the world. However, the Jiao Xian cultivation world was currently in a state of chaos. Because of Su Yi's death, the Jiao Xian cultivation world was shaken. Just like when the executor of the wind and fire world, Mo Fo, was killed when Su Yi died, the entire Jiao Xian cultivation world was in a state of panic. Naturally, there were people who took the opportunity to cause trouble. Murong Yu had just arrived in the Jiao Xian cultivation world when he discovered this situation. Immediately, he couldn't help but frown, and a murderous intent rose in his heart. This world was already his, and anyone who tried to cause trouble here had to die. After all, no one wanted someone to cause trouble in their own territory. However, Murong Yu didn't care about these people for the time being. Before he was fully recognized by the origin of the Jiao Xian cultivation world, although he could kill these people, it would be troublesome. Now, the most important thing for him was to refine the origin of the Jiao Xian cultivation world. Once he completely controlled the Jiao Xian cultivation world, he would become the true ruler of the Jiao Xian cultivation world. Perhaps it was because the Huaxia cultivation world and the wind and fire world's origin had submitted to Murong Yu. Or perhaps it was because they saw that Murong Yu had a bright future. In short, the Jiao Xian cultivation world was very cooperative and didn't cause any trouble. In fact, although the origin energy had intelligence, it wasn't very high. It wasn't as complicated as humans. As long as it was recognized, it would always be loyal and would not betray or change its mind halfway. Therefore, when Murong Yu entered the origin space of the Jiao Xian cultivation world, the origin of the Jiao Xian cultivation world was very cooperative. Murong Yu was very familiar with refining the origin energy. Moreover, as his strength continued to increase, his refining speed became faster and faster. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, a year had passed. On this day, Murong Yu suddenly roared to the sky. At this moment, he had finally completely refined the origin energy of the Jiao Xian cultivation world and became the enforcer of the Jiao Xian cultivation world. The moment he became the enforcer of the Jiao Xian cultivation world, Murong Yu's divine thought covered the entire Jiao Xian cultivation world. Everything was under his control. If Murong Yu wanted to, he only needed a thought to kill everyone in the Jiao Xian cultivation world. However, Murong Yu obviously wouldn't do that. If he wanted to kill, he would have destroyed this world directly. What was the point of becoming the enforcer of the Jiao Xian cultivation world? Crackle! Crackle! When Murong Yu roared, a series of crackling sounds came from Murong Yu's body. This wasn't because Murong Yu's physical body had improved, but because, at this moment, Murong Yu felt that his talent and aptitude were being washed away. In the distance, an invisible torrent was surging into his body. It began to wash his body, bones, meridians, and even everything. At the same time, this torrent merged with the origin energy of the Huaxia cultivation world and the Fenghua cultivation world. Then, they intertwined and blended together. They continued to wash Murong Yu's body. In fact, Murong Yu could even see his talent rising steadily. After his talent rose, Murong Yu's comprehension and everything else rose rapidly. The rise of talent, aptitude, and comprehension was the most terrifying thing. Once it rose, Many things that he didn't understand in the past suddenly became clear. Some things about cultivation that he didn't understand in the past were now clear. At this moment, Muronyu understood, and his strength rose sharply. Although his realm didn't rise, his combat strength increased a lot. In fact, he even had a feeling. If he were to fight with Su-Yi again, he could easily kill Su-Yi. As his talent rose, Muronyu saw that the chaotic celestial record had also improved. It was a pity that the time for this talent to rise was too short. In just a short moment, it was gone. Of course, it didn't disappear completely. Muronyu's talent and aptitude were still rising, but it wasn't as obvious as before. However, even if it was only a slight increase, it was still an increase. After all, in this world, there were too few things that could increase one's talent. And as long as Muronyu was given enough time, his talent would rise to a terrifying level. Becoming an enforcer is indeed the best way to increase one's talent. Muronyu's eyes flashed coldly. The more cultivation worlds one controlled, the more terrifying the increase in talent would be. Muronyu had already decided that after this, he would start to hunt down the other enforcers of the cultivation worlds. It wasn't just the Yanhuang immortal world, but the enforcers of the other immortal worlds as well. One had to know that there were a total of 3,000 lower realms and 108,000 enforcers in this world. If Muronyu could become an enforcer of 108,000 cultivation worlds, how terrifying would his talent be? At that time, Muronyu's cultivation would soar to the heavens, never to stagnate. However, how difficult would it be to become an enforcer of the other cultivation worlds? Not to mention the other immortal worlds, it would be a problem for him to even go to the other immortal worlds. Even as an enforcer of the Yanhuang immortal world, Muronyu might not be able to kill all of them. After all, some enforcers were very strong. However, this was all in the future. Muronyu only had this thought: all these bastards die for me. After Muronyu took control of the 9 mystic immortal world, he saw that it was still chaotic. Some people who were stirring up trouble had benefited greatly from the chaos. These people were all trying to seize Muronyu's benefits. Muronyu couldn't take it anymore. Most importantly, these people were all evil. He slowly stretched out his hand and then clenched it. Bang, bang, bang. At almost the same time, all the villains in the 9 profound cultivation world that were targeted by Muronyu exploded into a bloody mist. These villains didn't even know how they died. As a large number of villains were killed, Muronyu immediately felt his stars rise by another notch. The inexplicable deaths of so many people caused the people of the 9 mystic immortal world to panic. However, Muronyu soon used the same method he'd used to destroy the Huaxia cultivation world and the Fenghua cultivation world. After their deaths, he left behind the memories of these villains. Muronyu could destroy half of the cultivation world with a single breath, so leaving behind their memories was as easy as flipping his hand. Many evil people were killed, and the world knew that they were all evil people. They also knew that there was an incomparably powerful existence above them that ruled this world. Chapter 685. The chaos in the 9 profound cultivation world calmed down, and Muronyu obtained a large number of star points. 10. 1 billion star points. There's still a big gap to reach 50 billion star points. Muronyu said helplessly. He only had 1 billion star points, and he needed 50 billion star points to exchange for the Emperor Breakthrough Pill. It was too difficult to earn star points. He had killed so many people, and many of them were immortal emperors, but he only got 10 billion star points. The 9 profound cultivation world only gave Muronyu a few million star points. During this time, I have to earn as many star points as possible. At the same time, I have to find information about the enforcers. Muronyu muttered in his heart. Then his figure flashed, and he left the 9 profound cultivation world. When he appeared again, Muronyu returned to the heavenly punishing palace's manor. That's right, Muronyu returned to the heavenly punishing palace. However, he didn't appear in the manor. Muronyu knew that if he appeared here, the people in the heavenly punishing palace would know immediately. At that time, a big hand might slap down. It might not hurt Morongyu, but the manor would be destroyed. Housekeeper Ma was cultivating in his room. Suddenly, he felt a familiar suction force on his body. Immediately, Steward Ma did not put up any resistance and disappeared with a swoosh. The moment Housekeeper Ma disappeared, a power condensed, and Housekeeper Ma continued to sit in the same place. If no one paid special attention, they wouldn't notice the difference between this power incarnation and the original body. Palace Master, are you okay? After appearing in the Hichu Luoshu world, Housekeeper Ma immediately bowed to Morongyu. Seeing that Morongyu was full of energy, Housekeeper Ma heaved a sigh of relief. I'm fine, and you can't kill me, Morongyu said faintly. A cold light flashed in his eyes. That's good. Housekeeper Ma nodded and then said, Palace Master, do you still want to go to the Heavenly Punisher Palace? I feel that some old fellows are already preparing to take action against you. Even if they don't attack you directly, I'm afraid they will take you down and punish you directly. Morongyu sneered and said, These old geezers have long been unhappy with me. You want to punish me? When the time comes, I will kill them all. Some of the old fellows were very powerful and had reached the immortal venerable realm. However, Morongyu knew that these people would not be able to do anything to him soon. As long as he obtained the Emperor Breakthrough Pill, Shenzhen, the Heavenly Court, and the Celestial Palace would have a large number of immortal Emperor-level experts. At that time, would these old fellows still dare to touch him? Steward Ma, do you know the situation and location of the other enforcers in the Heavenly Punisher Palace? Steward Ma was shocked. He looked at Morongyu in confusion and said, Palace Master, what are you doing? Perhaps you've already guessed it, but I'm now the enforcer of 3 cultivation worlds. The more I control a world, the more benefits it will bring me. Since the Heavenly Punisher Palace treated me like this, then there's no need for them to exist. These enforcers must all die, Morongyu said with murderous intent. If the Heavenly Punisher Palace had not shed all pretenses, he might not have done anything to these enforcers. But now, everyone from the Heavenly Punisher Palace must die. Palace Master, you want to control all of these cultivation worlds? Or even destroy the Heavenly Punisher Palace? Steward Ma's face turned solemn and continued. Do you know that the Heavenly Punisher Palace also has people in the upper realm? And their power is not weak. If you destroy the Heavenly Punisher Palace in the immortal world, then after you ascend, the people in the upper realm will not let you go. The Heavenly Punisher Palace was not only in the cultivation world, but also in the upper realm. Moreover, the Heavenly Punisher Palace in the upper realm was the most powerful. Even if all the experts of the Heavenly Punisher Palace in the 3,000 immortal worlds worked together, there would not be a match for the Heavenly Punisher Palace in the heavenly realm. However, this would not make Morongyu cower. So what if it was the Heavenly Punisher Palace? If he didn't destroy the Heavenly Punisher Palace, then he would be destroyed by the Heavenly Punisher Palace. Moreover, from the perspective of the Heavenly Punisher Palace in the immortal world, the Heavenly Punisher Palace in the heavenly realm might not be good people. Moreover, he had the Heavenly Punisher Order, so he was the rightful ruler. The Heavenly Punisher Palace originally belonged to him. Now that these people turned against him, they were traitors, naked betrayals. Not only do I want to control the 36 cultivation worlds, but the Heavenly Court also wants to unify the immortal world. It's the 3,000 immortal worlds and the 80,000 immortal worlds, Morongyu said with lofty sentiments. Steward Ma was frightened by Morongyu's lofty sentiments. He seriously sized up Morongyu, as if he wanted to get to know Morongyu again. Morongyu did not speak, and only quietly looked at Steward Ma. After a long time, Steward Ma exhaled, and his face became resolute. Then, he looked at Morongyu and said with a solemn expression, Since the Palace Master has such lofty aspirations, as your steward, I will naturally follow in your footsteps. Very good. Morongyu laughed. Although Steward Ma did not directly say it, he had already expressed his position. He would support Morongyu. In fact, Muronyu was not willing to lose Steward Ma, because Steward Ma's intelligence network was very powerful. If Steward Ma did not support him, it would take a long time for him to find those enforcers one by one. By then, it would be too late. Palace Master, I can't help you in other aspects, but my intelligence network is good. Just give me your orders. As for the enforcer of the Heavenly Punisher Palace, I know of one person in Mo. While speaking, Steward Ma directly transmitted the information of the enforcer in Mo called Jiao Li to Muronyu. Jiao Li, the enforcer of the great Luo cultivation world, was not very strong, only in the Immortal King realm. For the current Muronyu, he could be killed with a flip of his hand. However, this person had an Immortal Emperor realm expert by his side, who was the previous enforcer of the great Luo cultivation world. At this moment, in Mo, it seemed that a miracle was about to appear. Steward Ma, what's the miracle in Mo? Muronyu asked with a frown. I'm not very sure. Everything is just a rumor. It's said that a miracle will appear soon, and there will be a large number of divine weapons and the like. I don't know if it's true or not. A miracle meant a god's relic. It was different from the previous relics. Most of the previous relics were left behind from the ancient times. Although they were powerful, they were still above the level of immortal. Although there were many treasures inside, they did not exceed the level of immortal. As for gods, even the lowest level, they were still gods. They were far beyond the level of immortal. The divine weapons and elixirs used by gods were far beyond immortal weapons and immortal pills, because they were divine weapons and elixirs. If someone obtained a divine weapon, their strength would skyrocket countless times and they would be invincible. It would not be a problem for them to dominate the immortal world. There were even elixirs in the miracle that could allow one to break through and become a god. However, there were basically no miracles in the immortal world. Therefore, most of the experts in the immortal world had only heard of divine weapons, but did not know what they looked like. Looks like I have to make a trip to Mo. Whether or not there's a miracle, at least one enforcer in Mo is worth a trip. Muronyu made a decision. Is there any other news about the enforcers? Not for now. I've never paid attention to these enforcers before, so I don't have any information about them. However, this information can be obtained soon. Steward Ma said in a low voice. Muronyu nodded. Since that's the case, then investigate their situation for me. Be careful of those old fellows in the Heavenly Punisher Palace. If you sense that they're about to make a move, let me know immediately. With that, Muronyu let Steward Ma out of the Hichu Luoshu world and transported him back to the Heavenly Court. If a miracle really does appear in Mo, then this is an opportunity where danger and opportunity coexist. Gods are above immortals and have absolute power. If it really is a god's ruin, then the things inside will be terrifying. Everything in the immortal world will be destroyed. Therefore, Jiqing and the others should stay in the Heavenly Court. No, they should stay in Shenzhen. Muronyu thought for a while and finally decided not to take Zhao, Jiqing, and the others with him on this adventure. He even wanted to place Zhao, Jiqing, and the others in Shenzhen. After all, if a miracle really did appear this time, then Muronyu might die. If Muronyu died, then the Heavenly Court would be destroyed immediately. Muronyu immediately gathered Zhao, Jiqing, and the others. No, we have to go together. As soon as Muronyu explained the situation, Yu Mengqing was the first to speak. She directly rejected Murongyu's suggestion. Zhao, Jiqing, and Mu Liyue both nodded. It might be very dangerous this time, but it might also not be dangerous at all. No matter what, I won't go to Shenzhen. If you want to go, then let's go together. Don't think of abandoning us. Yu Mengqing snorted coldly. Muronyu glared at Yu Mengqing. However, Yu Mengqing was not afraid at all and glared back. At the same time, Muronyu also saw the dangerous aura in Zhao, Jiqing, and Mu Liyue's eyes. All right, all of you have to stay in the treasure space. Without my permission, none of you are allowed to come out. Muronyu could not argue with the girls in the end and put them into the heavenly punishment token one by one. Even if Murong Yu died in the heavenly punishment token, the girls would not die in the heavenly punishment token. They could even live in the heavenly punishment world. After all, the heavenly punishment world was a complete world. As for Hichu Luo Shu, although it was also a world, there were not many people. Apart from that, Murong Yu also brought along Xiahou Jue, Gan Fei, and the other two immortal emperors. After leaving a power clone in the heavenly court, Murong Yu left Feng State and hurried towards Mo State. At the same time, the news of the miracle's appearance had spread. A large number of experts in the immortal world rushed over. There were even more people than there were at the Divine Rule Celestial Steel. After all, not many people benefited each time the Divine Rule Celestial Steel appeared. Although many people knew that the Divine Rule Celestial Steel had appeared, they did not necessarily want to join in the fun. However, the appearance of a miracle was definitely beneficial. One was more illusory, while the other was real. In comparison, the appearance of a miracle was more attractive than the Divine Rule Celestial Steel. Chapter 686. Mo Zhou was one of the millions of states in the immortal world. It was bigger than Feng Zhou, and its overall strength was stronger. There was even a superpower overseeing Mo Zhou. It was the overlord of Mo Zhou. The entire Mo Zhou was under the control of this superpower. Mo Zhou was so big that there was no lack of teleportation formations. At this time, in Mo Zhou City, the teleportation formation kept flashing and experts kept coming out. These people came from all over the immortal world because of the miracle that was about to happen in Mo Zhou. Swoosh! Murong Yu also came out of the teleportation formation. As soon as he came out, Murong Yu felt a powerful aura hitting him in the face. Murong Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he opened his eyes to look. What he saw was the incomparably huge Mazhou City, which was dozens of times larger than Feng City. Powerful auras rose from the sky, and white and black lights shrouded the entire city. So many people. Murong Yu was very shocked. Feng City had hundreds of billions of people. Mo Zhou City was dozens of times bigger than Feng City. Naturally, there were dozens of times more people than Feng City. Dozens of times, this was under normal circumstances. At this time, a large number of people came into Mo Zhou, although not all of them gathered in Mo Zhou City. However, there were still hundreds of times more people here than in Feng City, maybe even more. In other words, there were at least dozens of trillions of people in Mo Zhou City. 1 trillion was 1 trillion. In other words, there were at least dozens of trillions of people in Mo Zhou City. Even if these people did not deliberately emit a strong aura, the aura that was vaguely emitted was very terrifying when gathered together. People with low cultivation realm would not be able to stand under the pressure of this terrifying aura. Looks like Mo Zhou came to the right place. Murong Yu laughed. Dozens of trillions of people gathered together. The number of villains among them was also a few trillions. Even if 100 villains gave Murong Yu 1 star point, killing a few trillions would give Murong Yu tens of billions of people. Moreover, the people who came to Mo Zhou City were all powerful people with high evil stars. For example, if Murong Yu killed an immortal emperor-level villain, he would at least get hundreds of thousands of stars. According to this calculation, the number of stars that Murong Yu obtained was definitely a terrifying number. Of course, Murong Yu could not kill so many evil men. After all, these people would not voluntarily send themselves to be killed by Murong Yu. Moreover, Murong Yu could not directly slaughter them. Once the public was angered, the consequences would be unpredictable. I have a hunch that the harvest this time will be good. I can even earn enough star points to exchange for the Breakthrough Emperor pill, or even more. Murong Yu smiled faintly. Then, his figure flashed, and he left the teleportation array area. Hichu begins sensing Jiaoli. As Murong Yu walked through Mo Zhou City, he instructed Hichu to start sensing Jiaoli. At the same time, he also spread out his divine sense in all directions. Of course, Moronyu did not release any ordinary spiritual force. In this Mo City, where experts were as common as clouds and as common as trees in the forest, not many people dared to spread out their spiritual force without any restraint. After all, there were too many experts here. There were even quite a few immortal reverend experts. It was fine if they scanned people who were weaker than them. However, if they scanned people who were stronger, then it would be a disaster. Some people with good personalities might only be displeased. However, for some cruel people, when you scan them with your spiritual force, they would definitely kill you. After Moronyu cultivated the Zai technique, his understanding of space became more and more powerful as time passed. At this moment, his divine sense had already merged with the space and spread out in all directions. In an instant, Morongyu's spiritual force enveloped the entire Mo City. Suddenly, every movement in Mo City appeared in front of his eyes. It was vivid and clear. Whether it was an immortal reverent expert, a heavenly immortal, or an ant in Mo City, their every movement appeared in Morongyu's mind. Of course, Moronyu only saw them. He did not dare to get too close to some of the stronger experts. After all, these experts' senses were very terrifying. Even if Morongyu's spiritual force was hidden in space, once he tried to spy on them, they would be able to sense it. In addition, there were restrictions set up by some experts. Moronyu could not enter them. However, as long as Moronyu was willing, he could enter these restrictions. However, there was no need for that. Found it. Morongyu's heart jumped. He had already seen one of his targets in Mo City this time, Jiaoli. At this moment, Jiaoli was in a restaurant in Mo City. Beside him, there were a few people with surging vital energy and auras. 3 immortal emperor experts. The weakest of them is in the intermediate immortal emperor realm. One of them is even in the advanced immortal emperor realm. Moronyu frowned slightly because he saw that there were 3 immortal emperor experts beside Jiaoli. Jiaoli is only in the immortal king realm. Even if he explodes with the power of an immortal monarch, he can still kill him instantly. However, the 3 immortal emperors beside him are a little difficult to kill. Moronyu was very strong. He could kill immortal emperors when he was in the immortal king realm. However, he could only kill early-stage immortal emperors. Once they reached the intermediate immortal emperor realm, Moronyu would not be able to kill them. After one reached the immortal emperor realm, every increase in one's cultivation level was very terrifying. It was tens or even hundreds of times stronger than the previous cultivation level. If these 3 immortal emperors don't leave, I won't be able to kill Jiaoli. However, there's no rush now. Moronyu muttered in his heart. He immediately controlled the power of space and left a mark on Jiaoli's body. This mark did not have any attacking power. If it was left on Jiaoli's body, it would allow Moronyu to sense Jiaoli's location within a certain range. However, Moronyu left the power of space without anyone noticing. Even the expert in the advanced immortal emperor realm did not notice anything unusual. This reflected the terrifying power of the power of space. Since I can't kill Jiaoli for now, I'll earn some star points first. Moronyu's figure flashed and merged into Mo City. Bang! 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 Moronyu walked around Mo City like a ghost. Wherever he passed, the villains with higher star levels were killed by him. Moronyu was very ruthless towards these villains. He usually killed them with one blow and turned them into a cloud of blood mist. Moreover, the current environment of Mo City was very advantageous to Moronyu. There was no divine consciousness scanning the void. This reduced the risk of Moronyu being discovered when he killed people. The large number of people in Mo City also gave Moronyu enough villains. Moreover, because there were too many of them, even if Moronyu killed tens of millions of villains, it would probably not attract anyone's attention. Moronyu was indeed like this. He was very arrogant and could even be said to be unscrupulous. He hid in the void and kept moving back and forth. He appeared in the entire Mo City like a ghost. He was like the god of death, reaping the lives of villains one after another. In one day, Murong Yu had killed tens of millions of villains. Murong Yu also obtained more than 100 million star points. The speed of earning was very terrifying. However, 100 million star points was just a drop in the bucket compared to the 50 billion star points needed to exchange for the Emperor Breakthrough Pill. However, this was only the harvest of one day. If that miracle had not appeared, the number of people in Mojo City would not have decreased for a long time. On the contrary, more and more people would continuously pour into Mojo City. In one day, Murong Yu killed tens of millions of villains. However, the number of people who entered Mojo City was dozens of times more than the number of people who were killed by Murong Yu. To the people of Mojo City, the tens of millions of people killed by Murong Yu were like a drop of water in a river. It would not attract anyone's attention. Of course, these people that Murong Yu killed did not come in alone. They also had friends, relatives, and factions. When these people discovered that the people around them had suddenly disappeared, they might have some doubts. However, under the current circumstances, they still thought that they had left alone to act. Just like this, unknowingly, Murong Yu had already been in Mojo City for a month. In 1 month, Murong Yu had killed countless people. Meanwhile, Murong Yu's star points had also increased explosively by 5 billion, reaching 1 billion star points. He was one step closer to the 50 billion star point. Xiao Li and the others are moving? After killing an immortal high immortal realm villain with a punch, Murong Yu discovered that Xiao Li and the others had started to move. They were flying out of the city. Just nice. After killing so many villains in 1 month, it has already attracted the attention of some people. In that case, I'll stop for a while and find an opportunity to kill Xiao Li. Murong Yu had a thought and chased after them. In this 1 month, as Murong Yu continuously killed villains, he could not avoid killing some people from the same faction. Naturally, he attracted the attention of some factions. However, it was only to attract attention. At the same time, during this process, Murong Yu was pleasantly surprised to discover that his talent was constantly improving. His comprehension of the chaotic celestial record had also sped up by a lot. He even felt that he was about to make a breakthrough in his realm. After killing Xiao Li and becoming the enforcer of the Daluo cultivation world, my talent will be further improved. Perhaps at that time, the chaotic celestial record will directly break through. Murong Yu thought to himself. He increased his speed and chased after Xiao Li and the others from afar, shooting into the distance. Rumble. Just as Murong Yu was chasing after Xiao Li, a powerful and terrifying force suddenly tore through the void from afar and bombarded Murong Yu. The terrifying force shattered the sky and actually shook Murong Yu out of the void. Chapter 687. Swoosh. When Murong Yu was shaken out of the void by that terrifying force, Xiao Li and the rest were flying in front. Actually, those immortal emperors stopped abruptly. Their murderous gazes swept across billions of space-time and stabbed fiercely at Murong Yu. Murong Yu was furious. He knew that he had been discovered. However, what made him even more furious was the person who had shaken him out of the void. Rumble. Not far from Murong Yu's side, terrifying forces were constantly erupting. Powerful auras were constantly soaring into the sky. They covered the sky and the sun. The sun and moon were dim. The sky was falling and the earth was cracking. There were people fighting over there. The force that had shaken Murong Yu out of the void was not an attack. It was just a force that had escaped from the battle over there. Murong Yu could not help but curse his bad luck. Although he could hide in the void, he could not completely merge with the void. This was because this was his body and not his spirit sense. His spiritual could safely fuse into the void. When his body was hidden in the void, once he was attacked, he would be shaken out of the void. "You're following us?" Xiao Li and the rest flew back. An incomparably powerful aura pressed down. Each of them was filled with murderous intent. Murong Yu frowned slightly. Then, he smiled faintly and said, "I'm following you? Why should I follow you? Do you think that with my strength, I can follow you without being discovered? The immortal emperors nodded slightly. They also agreed with Murong Yu's words. If an immortal monarch was following them and they did not discover anything, it would be really embarrassing. However, it was inevitable that they would be embarrassed, because Murong Yu was indeed following them. If it was not for the sudden force that had shaken him out of the void, these people really would not have discovered anything. At this moment, Jiaoli took a step forward and looked at Murong Yu with a sinister smile. At the same time, he threw a punch at Murong Yu. A cold light flashed in Murong Yu's eyes. He did not even look at Jiaoli. Instead, he looked at the strongest late-stage immortal emperor expert and said in a deep voice, "What's the meaning of this?" "Nothing. Since Jiaoli wants to kill you, you could be obedient and let him kill you." The late-stage immortal emperor expert sneered. He flicked his finger and a few forces shot over. He wanted to bind Murong Yu. In his eyes, he could easily kill Murong Yu. He even thought that Jiaoli, who was also an immortal king, would be able to kill Murong Yu. However, as a precaution, he still restrained Murong Yu and sent Jiaoli to kill him. How shameless. Boom! Jiaoli's ferocious attack shattered the void and blasted towards Murong Yu. Like a stormy sea, he wanted to turn Murong Yu into a bloody mist. At this moment, Murong Yu made his move. He threw out a punch. It was an ordinary punch. However, it shattered Jiaoli's terrifying force. This shocked Jiaoli. Even the three immortal emperors behind him looked at Murong Yu in shock. This was especially true for the immortal emperor who had sealed Murong Yu. Although he had only sealed a part of Murong Yu's strength, he did not seal all of it. But now, it seemed that Murong Yu's strength had exceeded his expectations. Seeing this, Jiaoli was stunned. Then he laughed out loud. He looked at Murong Yu with a gloomy face and said, "Kid, your strength is not bad. If you don't want to die, kneel down and become my servant or slave. Otherwise, you will die today." Murong Yu looked at Jiaoli as if he was looking at an idiot. He sneered, "Idiot." In reality, Murong Yu was thinking about how to find an opportunity to kill Jiaoli. However, there were three immortal emperors beside him. Each of them was powerful. Murong Yu was not confident that he could kill Jiaoli in front of them. Jiaoli looked at Murong Yu ferociously and said, "Kid, since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, you can go to hell. Great Luo divine palm, heaven falls, and earth rends." Jiaoli roared and threw out a palm attack. Suddenly, heaven fell and earth rent. The sun and moon lost their light. Heaven and earth turned dark. Billions of palms were waving in the void. They carried a terrifying aura and attacked Murong Yu crazily. "Insignificant skill," Murong Yu sneered. With a sway of his body, he dashed forward. His invincible divine fist smashed out directly. Boom! After an earth-shaking loud noise, Jiaoli was directly sent flying out. He spat out blood in midair. However, Murong Yu did not move. He stood on the spot like a demon god. He was extremely tall. The immortal emperors were surprised. At the same time, Murong Yu felt that three powerful divine wills had locked onto him. Obviously, the three immortal emperors wanted to kill him. The divine wills that locked onto him were filled with killing intent. These are not good people. Murong Yu's eyes flashed. His heart was filled with killing intent. If it was not for the fact that he was not strong enough to kill these immortal emperors, Murong Yu would have killed them long ago. Not to mention, these people wanted to kill him. They were his enemies. Moreover, these people's evil stars were not high. If he killed them, Murong Yu would get at least 10 million star points. "Lowly slave, you actually injured me. You're going to die. You must die." Jiaoli roared. He turned into a ray of light and rushed towards Murong Yu. Murong Yu's eyebrows were filled with killing intent. He looked coldly at Jiaoli, who was rushing towards him. He decided that if Jiaoli got close, he would definitely use his strongest attack to kill Jiaoli. So what if there were immortal emperors here? Murong Yu believed that with his speed, even a late-stage immortal emperor expert would not be able to catch up with him. Murong Yu's current speed, after combining with space, could be said to be unparalleled in the world. He was truly unparalleled in the world. Of course, this referred to the immortal world. Jiaoli, come back. At this moment, the late-stage immortal Emperor Man spoke. He stretched out his hand and pulled Jiaoli back. You are not his match. Master, Jiaoli roared. He stared at Mu Rongyu with resentment like a poisonous snake. Did you hear that? You're not my match. Go back and cultivate for billions of years. Maybe you can barely fight with me. However, after billions of years, I don't even know what realm I will reach. Mu Rongyu smiled faintly. However, his words made Jiaoli even more resentful. Kid, you are too arrogant. Although your strength is not bad, geniuses always die young. You are no exception, Jiaoli's master said faintly. Then he stretched out his hand and grabbed Mu Rongyu. Swoosh! Just as Jiaoli's master made his move, the illusory light wings appeared behind Mu Rongyu. Then, the black wings, which were several feet long, flapped fiercely with his swoosh. Mu Rongyu disappeared on the spot. He turned into a black dot and disappeared into the distant horizon. So fast. Seeing this scene, Jiaoli and the others revealed shocked expressions. However, other than Jiaoli, they were all immortal emperors after all. Moreover, they were not weak. Their reaction speed was extremely fast. Rumble, the three immortal emperors attacked at the same time, unleashing an incomparably huge palm of power. It tore through the void and traversed countless space-time to pursue Mu Rongyu. However, Mu Rongyu had already disappeared from their sight. In fact, he had even disappeared from their divine consciousness. Chase after him. This kid's strength is terrifying. We have already offended him today. In the future, if his strength increases by a few more realms, we will not be his match. Jiaoli's master and the other two looked at each other. Then, they stood up and chased after Mu Rongyu. The speed of immortal emperors was extremely terrifying. However, when they chased after Mu Rongyu, they did not even see his shadow. In the end, even the aura that Mu Rongyu left in the void disappeared. Who the hell is this kid? His speed is so terrifying. Jiaoli's master's face was extremely gloomy. He vaguely had a bad feeling in his heart. Mu Rongyu is only in the Immortal King realm. However, his strength and speed were extremely powerful. Especially his speed, these immortal emperors and even late-stage immortal emperors could not catch up to him. If an Immortal King realm had such strength, what would happen if they broke through to the Immortal Monarch realm or even the Immortal Monarch realm? Jiaoli's master and the others even felt that they might have offended someone that they should not have offended. It's just a kid. If we have the chance to meet him in the future, just kill him. Jiaoli's master suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and said indifferently, if we get a divine artifact or divine pill this time, will we still be afraid of a mere immortal king? Even if it's the power behind him, we won't be afraid. Jiaoli said resentfully. He wanted nothing more than to kill Mu Rongyu. In that case, let's ignore this kid for the time being. Jiaoli's master's face was extremely gloomy. Then, he turned around and shot into the distance. Could it be that these four people know some information about the divine traces? In the Hichu Luoshu world, Mu Rongyu frowned slightly. He had heard every single word that Jiaoli and the others had said earlier. According to the information that Stuerma received, Jiaoli and the others came to Mozhou before the news of the divine traces was spread. Could it be that they really know about the divine traces? Now, they're going to look for the divine traces? Mu Rongyu's heart skipped a beat. His figure flickered and appeared outside. Then he unfolded his body and followed Jiaoli and the others from afar. Soon, Mu Rongyu arrived at the place where he was shaken out of the divine traces. At this moment, not far from the side, the terrifying fluctuations were still constantly transmitted over. There were continuous roars. Jiaoli and the others might already be vigilant. It's not suitable to follow too closely. Let's go and see who is fighting. Mu Rongyu's eyes were filled with killing intent. He was also very angry at the two people who were fighting. Chapter 688. With a sway of his body, Moronu flew across the sky like a flash of light, heading towards the battle in the distance. The closer he got to the battle, the more intense the battle felt by Moronu. Streaks of terrifying power were constantly tearing the sky in front of him apart. Occasionally, a terrifying power would splash out and fly towards the distance. It was just like the energy that had shaken Moronu out of the void. Whoosh, whoosh. Moronu's speed was extremely fast. Soon, he was already close to the battle in front of him. Finally, he saw the two sides of the battle clearly. High in the sky in front of him, there were two figures. Their chi and blood were surging. Both of them were very powerful. They were displaying their peerless combat skills and attacking fiercely. One of them was a youth in yellow who looked like he was 15 or 16 years old. The opponent of the youth in yellow was a youth in white who was about 20 years old. Of course, this was not their real age. As a cultivator, they might not even know their real age. It was impossible for them to be as young as they looked. In addition to the two youths who were fighting, there were two groups of people on the ground. They were in two different positions. Each of them was looking at each other with murderous intent. They couldn't wait to rush up and kill everyone. What a powerful force. When Moronu saw the two people fighting in the sky, he couldn't help but be shocked. The two people in the battle seemed to be in the late immortal Emperor realm. However, their true strength had definitely surpassed that of an ordinary expert in the late immortal Emperor realm. They were existences at the Overlord level. Who are they? Looking at the two experts fighting in the void, Moronu frowned slightly. In addition to having unparalleled combat strength, these two people also had the aura of a superior, a noble aura that came from their bloodline. These two people should be the superiors of some big forces. Boom! Mountains crumbled and the earth cracked. After an earth-shattering explosion, the two experts fighting in the sky were sent flying by the terrifying force of the impact. Then, the youth laughed loudly. Yu Xian, you're the young master of the Immortal Palace. The young master of the Immortal Palace. Moronu felt as if a thunderbolt had exploded in his head. This yellow-clothed young man, Yu Xian, was actually the young master of the Immortal Palace? The Immortal Palace was Moronu's enemy. When they were still in the cultivation world, the Immortal Palace had tried to kill Moronu and seize the Hichu Luo Shu. It could even be said that the hatred between Immortal Palace and Moronu had been there for a long time. Anyone from the Immortal Palace was Moronu's enemy. Immediately, Moronu looked at Yu Xian, and a wisp of uncontrollable killing intent emanated from him. Yu Xian immediately sensed the killing intent in Moronu's eyes. He could not help but turn around to look at him. However, when he saw that Moronu was only an ant in the Immortal King realm, a look of disdain appeared on his face. An indifferent voice rang out, but it contained a terrifying sound wave attack. It tore through the void and headed straight for Moronu. Moronu snorted coldly and mobilized the power of space to directly shatter the sound wave attack. It was not that Yu Xian's attack was too weak, but Moronu's attack was too terrifying. Moreover, Yu Xian's attack was definitely not weak. Even a Celestial Duke would not be able to withstand Yu Xian's sound wave attack and would be directly shattered into pieces. However, Moronu's strength was not something an ordinary Celestial Duke could compare to, let alone a Celestial King realm expert. A look of surprise appeared on Yu Xian's face. Then, a chilling, killing intent appeared in his eyes. However, this time, he did not make a move. Instead, he turned to look at the youth. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Yu Xian did not make a move, but his subordinates moved. In a flash, they had already surrounded Moronu to prevent him from escaping. It must have been Yu Xian's order. Moronu stood on the spot calmly. His expression did not change at all. It was as if he did not see the people around him. Ling Chun, you're just SOSO. What number one expert among the younger generation of the Saint Gate? You're just SOSO. In front of me. You can't even withstand a single blow. Yu Xian looked at Ling Chun and said indifferently. There was a strong sense of disdain in his voice. Ha! Yu Xian, everyone knows how to boast. Maybe your old man can defeat me, but you can't. Ling Chun laughed loudly. However, his eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. There was no smile at all. Young master of the Saint Gate, Ling Chun. Murong Yu's eyes flashed coldly. The killing intent in his heart became sharper. He knew that the people behind the forces that attacked the heavenly court previously were from the Saint Gate. These people were all his enemies. If he could kill them, not only would he be able to obtain a large number of stars, but he would also be able to deal a heavy blow to the Saint Gate and Immortal Palace. The halos on the two of them were not white. Instead, they were black and shiny. The stars of the villains were extremely high. Yu Xian, I don't have time to tangle with you now. After the miracle opens, I'll kill you. Ling Chun looked deeply at Yu Xian. Then his gaze seemed to inadvertently sweep past Murong Yu's face at this moment. Murong Yu's skin seemed to have exploded. There was an intense piercing pain. Murong Yu's heart was immediately overwhelmed with shock. The strength of this Ling Chun had exceeded his expectations. Just a glance was so sharp. If it was an ordinary expert of the Immortal King realm, his physical body would have collapsed and he would have been killed by Ling Chen's gaze. However, Ling Chen's gaze, which was filled with killing intent, only caused Murong Yu's skin to ache. It did not cause any harm to Murong Yu at all. Ling Chun couldn't help being shocked when he saw this scene. After taking another deep look at Murong Yu, he led the Holy Gates experts towards the Mo Prefecture city. This person must be killed. Looking at Ling Chen's back, Murong Yu's heart was filled with killing intent. These lawless fellows. He had only glanced at them, and they wanted to kill him. This made Murong Yu's killing intent towards them even more intense. "And who are you? I can feel your killing intent towards me." Yu Xian flew to a place not far from Murong Yu. He looked down at Murong Yu with a calm expression. However, his voice was filled with intense, killing intent. "You're the young master of the Immortal Palace?" Murong Yu looked at Yu Xian. After a long time, he said indifferently, "How dare you?" Seeing that Murong Yu was so rude, an old man immediately shouted. He stretched out his hand and slapped towards Murong Yu. This was an expert of the early stage of the Immortal Emperor realm. He was one of the servants of the young master of the Immortal Palace. Murong Yu's eyes were filled with killing intent. He snorted coldly, slap. Suddenly, before the hand of the early stage Immortal Emperor realm old man could reach Murong Yu's face, a huge slap was slapped onto his face. However, he was slapped in the face by an invisible hand. Half of his face was swollen, and he was sent flying. Seeing this scene, everyone present was shocked. Even Yu Xian was taken aback. This was because he couldn't see who had attacked just now. There's an expert nearby. Yu Xian's heart skipped a beat. He thought there was an expert nearby. The so-called expert he was referring to was an expert of the Immortal Emperor realm. Even he couldn't feel the energy fluctuation of an expert. How terrifying was his strength. Thinking of this, Yu Xian couldn't help but become alert. The way he looked at Murong Yu also changed. He assumed that this was the work of an expert behind Murong Yu. Brother, how should I address you? I'm the young master of the Immortal Palace, Yu Xian. Yu Xian suddenly laughed and said to Murong Yu. His attitude towards Murong Yu changed instantly. He had upgraded from an aunt to a brother. Murong Yu looked at Yu Xian indifferently and said, "You don't have the right to know." Yu Xian was stunned. A cold, killing intent flashed in his eyes. However, he still had a smile on his face. In fact, his heart was filled with killing intent. Bastard, you're dead. You're dead. I'll kill you and the person behind you." Yu Xian, the young master of the Immortal Palace. Murong Yu suddenly smiled and said, "Soon, I'll kill you with my own hands." As he spoke, Murong Yu's body shook. Black illusory light wings spread out, covering the sky and the sun. Then, with a flap, Murong Yu turned into a black flowing light and disappeared into the distant sky. Bastard, don't let me know who you are. Otherwise, you're dead. You're dead." After Murong Yu left, Yu Xian finally couldn't help but curse. Investigate Investigate for me. I want to know everything about him. Bastard, how dare you offend me? You're courting death. After a long time, Yuxian calmed down from his rage and said resentfully, "The young master of the Immortal Palace and the young master of the Sacred Sect have appeared. The young master of the Devil Sect is probably here too. It seems that the attraction of the miracle is not ordinary." In the distance, Moronyu was flying and calculating in his heart. It's a pity that these young masters are too strong. I can't kill them for the time being. Moronyu looked regretful. He really wanted to kill Yuxian and Ling Chun. However, these two guys were at a higher realm than him. Their strength was also very terrifying. Even if Moronyu used all his means, he might not be able to kill them. Of course, if Moronyu used the Chinquin Bow and the sky-shaking arrow, he might be able to kill them. However, this was impossible. Once Moronyu used the Chinquin Bow and the sky-shaking arrow, he didn't know what kind of bloody storm it would cause. After all, there were countless experts in Emojo City. When the time came, there would be countless experts fighting for the sky-shaking arrow. At that time, it was hard to say whether the sky-shaking arrow would still be Moronyu's. However, in the scene just now, Moronyu had successfully created the illusion that there was an expert behind him. This made the people from the Immortal Palace, who wanted to attack him, have scruples. Before investigating clearly, they wouldn't rashly attack him in the Heavenly Court. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.